Hey guys, the WalterFootball.com After the Dark Show for January 2nd, 2025. Normally I'd say this is the Week 18 Fantasy Football Rundown show, but let's face it, no one's playing Fantasy Football Week 18 unless you're in a crazy league. And if so, if you have any questions, just please let us know. But we're going to do a recap of the 2024 fantasy season instead and really kind of look more ahead to 2025 to see where some of these players will be drafted next year, which I think is way more interesting. So we're going to dive into all the games. And before I do, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. As you can see, I am wearing a Biden and Poop This Pants shirt. And our co-host tonight, Kenny, is wearing the new Pardon Me shirt. So we are both wearing Walter Football merch. If you want some of this, you can get it at the merch store. Like I said, the link is in the description. Here it is. All these shirts, I believe, they're still 25% off. You can get that. The apron's 25% off. There's a mug. I'm going to make more mugs. I keep saying that. Now that the football season's ending and on Sunday, I'm going to have more time to do it. So I'm going to make some mugs. I have some ideas. I think you guys will like them. So, So again, guys, you can help support the show by buying these shirts or go into Amazon, buy my book, Jerks of the College Years. I made fun of people. If you guys kind of like that kind of stuff, I think you'll like this book. Also, how the 2020 MVP was stolen, which is an expose about how Brett Favre sabotaged Aaron Rodgers' 2020 MVP award. So if you haven't heard the story, you're in for a treat. So you can order this book as well, or consider super chats, super stickers. It's the best way to support the show. We had a great super chat yesterday from Slew, helping us out a lot. Slew, a great guy here on the show, as well as John Sanders, Can Make an Eagle. And then also Joe for Show and Jesse Cintron and several others. So if you guys, once again, it really helps us because these YouTube ads pay nothing. And especially now because it's Q1 again. YouTube ads in Q4 were, okay. YouTube ads in Q1, they're going to pay zero. So any super chats, super stickers will help us out a lot. So we are joined here once again by Kenny. The cap is fake. Kenny, how's it going?
Oh, bro. I'm feeling fantastic. I am sitting here in my Walter football gear and just chomping down on some peanut butter. My wife thinks it's weird, but it's kind of like my favorite snack. It's just to eat peanut butter right out of the jar.
My wife does it too. We're reversed. My wife does it, and I don't like it because I actually don't like peanut butter. So
what? Really?
I don't like peanut butter. I don't hate it. If you gave me a spoonful of peanut butter, I won't throw up or anything. I'll eat it, but it's just, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan.
Oh, that's so strange. Anyway, well, I think it's delicious. So, other than that, I'm fantastic. I did lose in our fantasy championship, fantasy championship in our league this past week. So I finished in second. Not only did I lose, I got smoked. All of his guys went off. I mean, it was terrible. He had T. Higgins and Travis Kelce and Lamar Jackson and Saquon Barkley, and it was a pretty substantial beatdown. But it is what it is. In my 19 years in that league, I have gone to the championship 8 times. I am 3-5 in title games, 3-5, which I'm like the LeBron James of fantasy. I don't know. Is that good? Is that a good thing? I make it to the finals a lot, but can't seem to win as many finals as I want. Anyway, it's all right. It was I've had a good season. I lost in the semis in my other league, and so I felt I generally had a pretty good season.
Have we ever played in the finals? I've won 3 times as well. Have we ever done that? I don't think we have. I feel like we would have made it. Yeah, I think we would have made a big deal out of it, but somehow we've always avoided each other in the finals. Strange.
I feel like our teams have not been great ever in the same seasons.
Yeah. I noticed that too. This year, what happened this year? I feel like all my guys got injured or something. I don't know. That's what always happens. I either have a great team or all my guys get hurt. It's one or the other. It's never in between. So I don't know. Maybe next year we'll meet in the championship. That would be fun. You asked me Monday night ahead of the Lions-Niners game, what are the odds that Jahmyr Gibbs is going to score 89 points? That's what you needed from him. I was trying to do the math. I was how many touchdowns is that? And so I don't know. Did you get the joke that I set the odds for you? Did you see the number I gave you?
Oh no! Oh, I thought you just gave me a random large number. I didn't realize there was a
No,
pattern to it.
I gave you a code. I actually I was hoping you'd see it.
No, I didn't.
Because you said LOL. I thought that's why you laughed because you actually got it.
Oh no, I did. I thought you were just giving me a large ridiculous number, which is why I laughed. But 481-516-2342.
Yeah, you get
I
it.
have no clue what that is.
Okay. Well, combine 1 and 5 and 1 and 6 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2, like as in double digit numbers, and then say it again.
Hold on. 4-8-1-5.
Yeah. Yeah. So instead of 4-8, say 15. So instead of saying 4-8-1-5, say 4-8-15.
Oh, okay. Oh, 4-8-15-16-23-42.
4-8-15-16-23-42.
Oh, is this? That's from Lost.
That's the Lost, yeah.
It took me a second. I'm like, wait a minute. That's right. It's from Lost.
Yeah, those are Hurley's lotto numbers. So I don't know if you got. I thought you got it because you gave me an LOL, but
I missed it. I thought you were just giving me a really large random number as the odds to what were the possibility of Jahmyr Gibbs scoring 89 fantasy points. I don't even know what that would be. How many touchdowns would you need to score? I don't know. You would need.
Well, I mean,
8 touchdowns.
Yeah, you need. Well, assuming yardage. So if you had, how many yards would you need? Like 300 yards? I don't know.
Yeah.
We have bonuses too. So you would need 59 points if he's got 300 yards. So you would need 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. Like,
yeah.
It's actually like it doesn't seem like it's not like impossible, but it's very unlikely to happen. So anyway,
yeah. I mean, yeah. I
mean,
also once upon a time,
yeah,
several years ago, I had Alvin Kamara when he scored 6 touchdowns in a game in the fantasy championship, and I still lost that fantasy title.
Wow, that's crazy.
I mean, it's almost an impossible. Anyway, it is what
it
is.
Can you imagine if Gibbs had the same sort of stat line and then you still lost?
It's just, yeah.
You have to feel like cursed at that point.
I couldn't believe that I lost. It was my opponent that week totally went. All of his players did great, and I had one player that did great and still lost. So anyway, it is what it is. Sometimes fantasy football is just random like that. So
yeah, you have to you have to embrace the randomness and in fantasy football sometimes, because otherwise you're just going to lose your mind. You're like, I always get screwed over with injuries. That's part of variance in it. So yeah, we can dig into some of these players and where we think they're going to be drafted next year as we recap these games. So we recapped the Christmas games last week. The Ravens beat down of the Texans 31-2. Chiefs beating the Steelers 29-10. I don't think we need to rehash these games. If you want to hear us recap those, you can go back to last week. But let's begin with the Thursday game. This wonderful thriller that we had. 6-3 Seahawks beating the Bears. I heard some people say this is like the worst played football game of all time. Granted, it was in the rain, and so you can at least excuse that a little bit. But this was more of Caleb Williams just looking completely inept. Once again, just running out the clock at the end. They had like 5 minutes. It was like 4:30 or something when they got the ball, and it was like 2 minutes until they crossed midfield, and then they ran out of time. Like they once again screwed up. Eberflus wasn't there to take the blame this time, so this is all Caleb Williams. Let me ask you about him in a second, but then you have Seattle. A very frustrating day for Charbonnet. I had Charbonnet over 66.5 rushing yards. He had 50 in the first half. He had 7 in the second half. I don't know what happened there. Kenny McIntosh, for some reason, had 7 carries. And then none of the Seattle receivers did anything. Fant was okay at 43. Caleb Williams, he's a rookie, so you expect him to get better. But is it safe to say that like now with Michael Penix playing well, is he the worst quarterback this year? Okay, maybe he's going to get better, but this year, was he the worst rookie quarterback?
I mean, I said multiple times over the last few weeks, he's the 4th best rookie playing. fourth best rookie quarterback playing. There's still enough moments there where there are moments of brilliance. Like, okay, I see the talent, I see the ability. And so, which we've not, I've not seen that with Michael Penix. Like, there are things Michael Penix has played well, but there's been no moments where you're just like, oh wow, that guy's a star in the making. You've seen a couple of moments with Caleb Williams, but you've also just seen a lot of moments where you just go, I don't know if this guy can play in the NFL. I mean, it's been very up and down, very inconsistent. Phenomenal moments, a few phenomenal moments, and a whole lot of really bad moments. And you got to just believe maybe that he just holds the ball way too long. That's his biggest problem. He holds the ball, runs around. And I'm like, dude, you got to get rid of the ball. You got to just let it rip. And some guys never figure that out, but you would hope he does. And once he does figure it out, then that'll be a game changer. The talent's there, but the fact that he's even incompetent, the fact that there's even a question between him and Penix is a really bad sign. Like, if you're a Bears fan, that is not what you want to hear.
No, and you're right. Some quarterbacks don't learn that lesson. Even some quarterbacks who can't move around. Like Drew Bledsoe held the ball forever, and he couldn't move at all. So we'll see. I don't know. I mean, Caleb Williams' football IQ just seems very low. Just like. Yeah, like you said, holding the ball too long in the pocket, like not understanding like simple concepts and stuff, and not recognizing where the pressure is coming from. People yelled at me. I didn't say yell, but people complained about my mock draft that I didn't give the Bears an offensive lineman. I'm like looking at their linemen. I'm like, first of all, I like their two tackles a lot. They have a really good left guard. Their center and right guard, okay, yeah, they can be upgraded, but they're not that bad. Like why are they getting pressure so much? It's because Caleb Williams holds on to the ball too long. Like, it's like, what offensive lineman can you give them to change that? So, it's pretty bad. So I think it really depends on what sort of coach the Bears had. Charlie Campbell actually tweeted something today. He said the Bears were interested, Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, was interested in taking the Bears job, but Ryan Poles, the GM, had reservations about it because Ben Johnson would want Poles out. I'm thinking Ryan Poles sucks. Why is he making decisions? Like, this guy traded a second-round pick for Chase Claypool. He should lose all decision making after that trade. So I don't know. I think the Bears are just in a they have such big problems right now, and I think that they just need a new GM to come over. If I'm the Bears, I hire someone from the Lions front office, and then have that person hire Ben Johnson, and then just kind of try to do what the Lions did. That's what I would do.
At the end of the day, Caleb Williams has to progress, and it's like you look at the rest of the roster and you go like, I feel like there's enough there that if they're coached well and Caleb Williams takes a major step forward, they should be a viable playoff team next year. There's enough talent on the team on both sides of the ball. As you said, could they be upgraded? Of course they could be. Of course, there's always opportunities to upgrade your team. In almost every position on every team, often can be upgraded. But the Bears have enough in place already. They have enough draft capital where they go in the next year's draft the best player available. Caleb Williams takes a major step forward, and this team could be like a 10-win team. If this team is not a 10-win team, or at least if they're not vying in the playoff contention, it is because Caleb Williams has not progressed. Like, that's the only real reason. Or I mean, maybe there's injuries. I guess there's other reasons, but realistically, this team should take a major step forward in 2025. But if I were betting, I would bet that they're not. I'm not so sure that this guy's going to take that major step forward. As you said, the coaching's going to make a big difference. If they had someone like a Shane Steichen coming in, I'm not saying they can get Shane Steichen, but if they had someone like that who has a track record of being a good play caller and good quarterback coach, if they had someone like that, maybe Ben Johnson's that guy. I don't know. Maybe if they had someone like that, then you'd feel good about that. But absent that, man, you got to be nervous if you're a Bears fan. Yeah,
I mean, look, people expected them to make the playoffs this year. and people are betting on that. Their win total is high relatively to what it was last year, and they failed. And I agree. I think that they're more likely to not succeed depending on what they do with the coach. Like you said, they need a really good coach. As Slew pointed that out as well. Michael asking, do you think they move on from Poles? I definitely think they do. Well, I think they should. I don't know if they will. Poles replaced Mack with Sweat, Roquan, and with Edmonds, Daniels for Shelton, in addition to terrible free agent moves. Yeah, he spent a lot on DeAndre Swift. Let's not forget that as well. So that was a disaster. We called that at the time. This is not hindsight being 50-50.
Swift has had a couple. I mean, he's had some very good games over the last few weeks.
He's done well, but to spend that much money on him when you could just spend much less on pretty much an equal running back, I think that's stupid. And then Seattle, I feel like they just run this back next year. I mean, they lost some tiebreakers in the division, so nothing to be ashamed of. Jackson Smith and Jigba catching on. Metcalf was hurt the second half of the year. Charbonnet looked good in relief. You called that early in the season. Although he was a disappointment last week. So, but still, like he's been really impressive. So I don't. Seattle had some good things going on this year. I think that with the coach coming back for a second year, it's be like no learning curve this time. I think this team could make the playoffs next year. So I don't know. Outside of addressing the interior offensive line, I don't think they need to do much at all. So,
I mean, at the end of the day, they need a real quarterback, but that's not. That's not easy to do. So you're going to make do with Geno Smith, and they're not going to win a Super Bowl with Geno Smith anytime. Geno Smith's never going to be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. So, So it's at the end of the day, it's like, you're good enough to compete for the playoffs with Geno Smith, which means you're good enough to never be in a position to draft a high end quarterback in the first round. So it's kind of a weird catch-22 there.
Over on their draft position of Jackson Smith and Jigba, 412. To go early, it's earlier or later.
412. That's a good. I don't know. I would say he's going to go earlier than that.
I think maybe a little bit earlier. I can see that. The way he finished this year.
How many receivers are usually gone in that spot in a typical standard league? I'm looking back at our draft from this summer, trying to figure out how many receivers are in that spot.
Yeah.
He's going to be drafted as a top 15 receiver, right?
Yeah.
Top 12 receiver, maybe. So I think you're going to see him be like, I think, so like I'm looking at like last year, the top, last year, the 15th receiver coming into 2024 was Mike Evans. He was being drafted in the mid third, late second to late third. It was kind of his ADP.
That was the 15th receiver. Okay.
So maybe he's going third and higher. I mean, 412 actually is probably pretty late now that I think about it.
Yeah, I think he probably goes fourth round. I just wonder where Metcalf goes as well, because he was going. Where was he going this year? Like third, fourth round or something. I feel like he probably could go the same range this year, although that poor second half of the season just I think could leave like a bad taste in people's mouths. But
Metcalf was on average the 40th guy off the board coming into this year.
Okay, so that makes sense. So early fourth makes sense. Okay, all right. Let's get to the next game. We had Chargers 40, Patriots 7. This was a shellacking in every sense of the word. The Chargers were just looking to destroy the Patriots here. Drake May left the game with what they thought was a concussion, and then he came back. They cleared him from a concussion and still looked like he was concussed, like the way he was playing. Nothing really for the Patriots here at receiver except for Demario Douglas. Is a good slot receiver, but he can't be your number one threat. Like they really need receiver help. luckily there are some good receivers in this class. Like they can get Travis Hunter, or a couple other guys in the first round. But the Chargers, Lad McConkey continues to dominate. He's so good. But still, like you can't really rely on the other guys. Like Quentin Johnson, 5 for 48, but he had to drop. J.K. Dobbins returned. So I had so much success with some of these best ball drafts because I kept drafting J.K. Dobbins late, and then he gets hurt, and so I lose in the semifinals because I don't have J.K. Dobbins, and then he returns for the finals. One of my teams are eliminated. So you got to love how that works, right? But he had a good performance here. And Justin Herbert was great. 281, 3 touchdowns. So where do you want to begin here? With the crappy Patriots or the Chargers are going to playoffs?
Well, I guess the Patriots are easy. Demario Douglas, I like him. He scored a touchdown this week. I had him. I had him on the team. We're not a league that was playing this week. But had him in a league, and I think he's a player that could be valuable to a fantasy roster. Again, if he's your main guy, it's not ideal. He's going to be a late round guy, right? He's not going to get drafted high. He's not going to sneak up the boards at all. The question I have is, where is Stevenson going to get drafted? Because he's a decent, talented player, but I don't know what to make of him. And he had some good moments this year. I could see him really falling down the draft boards.
Yeah, he got benched in this game, so it's gonna be tough to justify that pick because it really depends on what the Patriots do with their offensive line. Like their offensive line is so bad, like they really need to fix that issue. But they also need receivers too, so they need a lot. Their defense isn't even that good. They have so many needs, so it really depends on what they do. Like if they spend most of their offseason upgrading their offensive line, and suddenly they have like 3 new starters who are great. And you're like, okay, and then Stevenson projects to be the starting running back. You're like, okay, Stevenson could have a good year. But if they don't make any offensive line moves, I don't know how it's going to be the same thing again this year. He's going to have like 3 or 4 really good games because they're playing against another bad team, and he goes off. And then the other games, he's just going to have like 12 carries for 30 yards, and you're just going to be sad for having him on your roster. So it's tough. It's tough to justify that. But yeah, I mean, conversely, you were all over J.K. Dobbins in the summer. I was as well, and then I jumped off. Unfortunately,
yeah, you were.
I jumped off the ship. Although I did draft him in the best ball, like I said, because he was going way too late. He was going like 14th round. I'm like, look, I could be wrong on this guy. If I'm wrong, I'm wasting a 14th round pick. It won't matter. So and then I ended up paying off. But yeah, I mean, Dobbins, you always have to be worried about his injuries, but heading into next year, like he's late second, third round pick now. I think probably third round pick for Dobbins. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the injury will. I mean, coming into the season, injuries was a question mark, and then he got injured. So it's like, I think there's a lot of people that are going to be a little nervous. I think that's going to depress his draft stock. I don't know where he'll go. I wonder, where will he come off the board? Like I would imagine he's probably, is he I don't know, like. What do you say? Third round? You said you think
he was in the best ball drafts. Like once the season kept going and people realized he's good, he's going mid third round.
I think that would be high. I'd be surprised if he goes that high.
Okay.
I maybe I'm wrong, but I think the injury question mark is going to I think will scare people away. Will depress his value a little bit, and rightfully so. I mean he's never had a fully healthy season, so it's totally fair to hold that against them.
Yeah, but then like which running backs have had fully healthy seasons? Like they always seem to get hurt. It's tough to trust any of these guys. They all come with risks, and
it's part of the position.
Yeah, and he has a lot of upside too. Lad McConkey, we talked about like whether you draft him over Marvin Harrison Jr. last week, and I think in PPR you definitely draft McConkey. I think in standard, I think it gets more interesting. Harrison has like unbelievable upside, but McConkey's chemistry with Herbert just great. So I don't know. Your opinions change at all on McConkey? Like, where do you think he goes?
My opinion on him has changed dramatically over the last month. I thought he was pretty okay, slightly above average. He's a fantastic route runner, and so It's funny. He has a little, not exactly, but he kind of has a Keenan Allen kind of game to him. So it's funny that they traded Keenan Allen and they replaced him with a guy who kind of has a similar style game. And so, yeah, I would imagine McConkey's probably going to be. I mean, I think that I can't imagine he goes earlier than like the 4th round, right? Let me see, like where is he at? Like, well, maybe not. I don't know. I was going to originally say 5th or 6th round, but maybe more as as receivers continue to kind of creep up the board. As you mentioned, like DK Metcalf last year was the 20th running back off the board, and that was early 4th. Are there 20 receivers better than Ladd McConkey coming in the 2025?
It's me close. He was going in like the 5th or 6th round in the best balls, but that was back in like November. I think he'd go earlier now.
Yeah,
so I think he goes 4th.
I was originally going to say 5th or 6th, but you're probably right. I think 4th, and maybe if the Chargers end up having a good postseason, and he looks good on a national stage, people are watching him play. The Chargers are not on TV a lot, so yeah, definitely. Well done, John Sanders. If the Chargers, they're not on TV a lot, so if a lot of people see him playing and he plays really well, he could shoot up the draft boards, right? He could end up being drafted like the 12th or 13th receiver off the board. I don't think that's crazy.
Yeah,
which would put him in the 3rd round, early 3rd.
And PPR, he goes way earlier too. Bagger says I saw commentators say he's earned the name Ladarius McConkey. I heard someone say that if his name was Ladarius McConkey, he'd be like a 1st round pick or in fantasy or something. Some lad goes 2-3 turn in best ball. Yeah, it probably. I mean, yeah, he probably goes up now. Like I said, he was going 5th, 6th, but like in November. Now it's going to be way earlier. Andrew asking, did you guys see that crazy Texas Arizona State game?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I had to go to my parents' house, so I was watching the game. It was 24-8, and I was like, okay. I packed up the kids, and I came over to my parents' house, and then I saw a touchdown, like suddenly 24-24. I'm like, what happened? So I missed the comeback. I did see the highlights though. But yeah, that was a good game. It was just our first loss against the spread in the college football playoffs. So it was sad to see that win streak end. But hopefully we're starting to win. We did with Ohio State, I guess.
You and I were talking about it before we started recording. I don't watch college football throughout the year. I usually watch a few bowl games here and there. And so, I had no vested interest in the game. So just as a football fan, it was fantastic. I didn't want it at the end. I was rooting for Arizona State to score at the end, just so the game keep going. It was so great.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. Although that non-targeting call is ridiculous. I don't know how that wasn't targeting. Like, that's crazy. Anyway, so the middle Saturday game of the divorce package that we had last week, Bengals 30, Broncos 24. This is a fun game. Except if you had Cortland Sutton over receiving yards in a parlay, and you really needed it, especially in overtime, and then you didn't get it because you would have hit the same game parlay. But that's unfortunate. Kenny, Marvin Mims, 8 for 103, 2 touchdowns. Kenny, I had a Raymaker Marvin Mims card. I had a legendary Marvin Mims cards because I kept pulling them in packs. I had elite Marvin Mims cards. I had rare Marvin Mims cards. I had Marvin Mims cards. I had more Marvin Mims cards than anyone on the planet, I think. And then they just poof vanished in the thin air. And before this offensive onslaught, can you imagine how much money I would have won on Raymakers if I still had those Marvin Mims cards?
Well, you didn't play your cards this week? Oh, I forgot. Never mind. That doesn't.
Yeah.
Never mind.
We'll have the packs after this episode. Anyway, like I don't. So I've been doing DFS stuff for week 18. I didn't know whether to suggest Marvin Mims or not because he's 4,600. I don't know what to think of this. Like he's obviously got talent. Look, he's drafted in the 2nd round. Right. He's really fast. He's going to be playing against backups for most of the game. So it seems like a good matchup, but like at the same time, I don't want to chase this if it's illegitimate. I don't know what to make of Marvin Mims. So maybe you can help me out here. What do you think about that and the rest of this game?
I would chase it.
Okay. Okay.
At 4,600, it feels like, at that price range, you're looking for guys that can grossly outperform it, and he's one of the few guys that probably could based on the situation. So, I think, of course, now that I say that, he'll score 1.3 points, and next week he'll be like, oh, Kenny, but I think I had chased worse things. So, I think as far as the Broncos go, I don't know what to make of Bo Nix. I think there was a moment this season where I thought this guy is terrible, doesn't belong in the NFL. Then there was a moment I was like, oh, this guy's actually pretty good, and he's going to be decent. Then there's moments again where I'm like, wait a minute, does he really belong in the NFL? I feel like I go back and forth with this guy, and so I feel like is Sean Payton just sort of like effectively covering over his flaws and just game planning? So I don't know what to make of Bo Nix and whether or not he is, a worthy NFL guy. The rest of this team, with the exception of Cortland Sutton, like, I don't know. If I'm the Broncos front office, if I can get rid of all of my skill players and start over, that might be worthwhile. I don't know. Going into 2025, obviously you can't do that. But I don't know. I'm thinking more of the backfield. Like, they're all a bunch of bums. I don't know. Like, once upon a time, we all loved Javonte Williams, but he's kind of proven to not be as great. Maybe the injury really I don't know what happened to him, but I'd be willing to move on from all of those guys. And going into 2025, I wouldn't be relying on any of them.
0 carries for Javonte Williams. Like, what happened there? Like,
I don't know. So strange.
I don't understand. I know he tore the ACL, but that was 2 years ago at this point. For the Bengals, T. Higgins caught all 3 touchdowns. So if you play Chase and not Higgins in your Saturday slate, my condolences to me included. Chase Brown, speaking of condolences, he hurt his ankle, so he may not play this week. There's a chance, like it's a mid to high ankle sprain, so he has a chance to play. If not, it's going to be Khalil Herbert, who is priced pretty well on DraftKings 5,100. But so I would like him if Brown's out. Mike Gesicki, 10 for 86. We were all over Gesicki. We had Gesicki over like 29 and a half receiving yards. He had 86. Like, it was insane. He got there so easily. He got there in like the second quarter, and they just kept going. So that was awesome. But yeah, I mean, look, Higgins and Chase are just great. We're gonna get them if they make the playoffs. We're gonna get them for one more game, and then it's gonna be bye Higgins because he's leaving free agency. So, any thoughts on the Bengals here?
Well, T. Higgins scoring 3 touchdowns was not great, being that he was in the lineup of the team I was facing. So that didn't feel good. But yeah, he's a great player. Although there seems to be some rumors out of Cincinnati that T. Higgins saying he's willing to take less money to stay. Maybe there's a chance he stays. Who knows? If I were his agent or his advisor, I'd be like, man, I'd think twice before I leave Joe Burrow. I mean, unless you're going to Kansas City. I mean, if you're a receiver, you want to play with a great quarterback, and Joe Burrows is pretty dang good. And so, if I were him, I'd be considering staying. From a fantasy perspective, there's a really, really bad track record of receivers that switch teams. There are exceptions. Obviously, A.J. Brown, Terrell Owens once upon a time with the Eagles. But generally speaking, most of the time, when receivers change teams, they take a step back in fantasy. And in a lot of cases, it's a substantial step back. And so if he does end up leaving your free agency, which it seems like I'd be nervous to be drafting Higgins going into next year. So,
yeah,
I know lots of people.
Yeah,
Diggs did all right with the Bills. So you're right. That's a great example.
Yeah, they're good. Like Vincent Jackson to the Buccaneers. There have been some other examples, but there have been a lot of examples of receivers failing as well. John Sanders, 411 super chat. Thank you so much,
John.
Your Chase Brown recommendation won me my league. That's awesome. Glad to hear it, John. That's really awesome. So congrats on winning your league. Thank you.
All over. I love Chase Brown. He's a
Yeah.
great player.
Yeah. Another Raymaker card I had. Can you imagine if I had Chase Brown and Marvin Mims Raymaker in the same lineup? It would have been pretty good, right? Yeah, I would have probably won the tournament there. So yeah, that's feel bad. So anyway, yeah, to be fair, as a Bills fan who knew Zach Moss is awful. Can you imagine, like, okay, like the Bengals, sure, they had Chase Brown, but they played Zach Moss over Chase Brown for like 7 or 8 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
that's stupid.
I mean, every week we're going, what's going on? Like, what? I don't understand these teams.
Yeah, we knew it. Everyone knew it. Chase Brown was so much more explosive. Zach Moss just a plotter. Yeah, he's doing a good job as a receiver out of the backfield, but like that's all he was. At the goal line, okay, but like he's so mediocre at best. Like Chase Brown just had so much more juice, and everyone knew it except for the coach apparently. And if Zach Moss never got hurt, I think Zach Moss would still be the starter because Zach Taylor is just a bozo and doesn't know what he's doing. So I don't like Zach Taylor at all, as you can tell. Yeah.
Thinking about, I mean, obviously Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase. Will he be the number one receiver next year drafted? I'm assuming.
It's either him or Jefferson. Who would you take?
I think I lean toward Chase just because I like the quarterback situation there more. I think,
especially if Higgins is gone too.
Yeah. So I was looking at the stats this week on Joe, just about Burrow's stats, and I kind of didn't realize like how far ahead he is of Allen and Lamar Jackson in terms of yardage and touchdowns. Like he's got like 800 more yards than they do, or 600 more yards than 800, and he's got several more touchdowns and less interceptions and better quarterback rating and better yards per attempt, better quarterback efficiency. If I look at his situation, like I think he's got a worse offensive line. I don't know. You could argue the Ravens were kind of inconsistent this year, but so you have like, I don't know. I'm thinking about the season that he's had because they've lost so many games. I think the season that Joe Burrow is having has kind of been overlooked.
Yeah,
he's having an amazing year, and I think it's kind of not being appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, some people argue if the Bengals make the playoffs, Burrow should be MVP, and I could see that argument. I still would give it to Josh Allen, but if it was Lamar Jackson versus Burrow, I would give it to Burrow, because my thinking is like if you take Josh Allen off the Bills and replace him with a medium quarterback, I don't think that team makes the playoffs. Same thing with the Bengals. Like if you replace Burrow with a mediocre quarterback, like that team like 4-12, 4-13, right? If you take Lamar Jackson off the Ravens, replace him with a mediocre quarterback, they still have Derrick Henry. They still have Marquise or Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, great number one run defense in the NFL. I still think that team could challenge for a playoff spot, and so that's why I would not consider Lamar Jackson to be MVP. And MVP means most valuable player. So I think that's where I would fall. So in the MVP voting right now, if Burrow makes playoffs, I go Allen and then Burrow instead of Jackson.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I'm maybe higher on Jackson, but I think as I thought about this week, I did have a thought, man. I wonder if Burrow really is the guy that should get it. Like if you replace Burrow with a mediocre quarterback, I'm like, does that team win 3 games?
Yeah.
I think the fall on the Bengals side of things is worse than with the Bills and the Ravens.
Who's the most mediocre quarterback in the NFL? Like what? Derek Carr, probably the most mediocre starter, I should say, not overall.
Yeah.
If you put Derek Carr as the quarterback of the Bengals, how many games do they win? Like 3, 4?
Yeah, probably. What? How many wins have the Saints gotten so far?
They have 5.
Okay,
but their defense is better. The Bengals are the worst defense in the NFL.
Yeah, probably. It'd be shy. It wouldn't be more than 5. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Slew asking, non-PPR, rank overall the 4 LSU receivers: Chase, Jefferson, Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr. Could all 4 be in the top 8 or 10? well, obviously, we talked about Chase Jefferson. We said going for the number one receiver. So yeah, obviously they're in the top 8. And then Neighbors, we had the discussion about Neighbors versus Thomas last week, where we thought that Thomas would go ahead of Neighbors because there was more clarity at quarterback for him. You can dog on Trevor Lawrence, not meeting expectations, but he's obviously better than what the Giants have at quarterback. Although you sent me this video about Drew Lock having the 6th best performance since 1999, only losing out to 2012 Peyton Manning and 2007 Tom Brady and 1999 Kurt Warner. So in fairness, maybe Drew Lock is going to be the next Hall of Fame quarterback, but probably not. If you rank them, I would go Chase and then Jefferson, and then I think I would go Thomas and then Neighbors, and I think Thomas is going to be a first round pick. I think Neighbors might go at the turn. I think there's a chance he goes in the second round, but I think that you can. It depends on what the Giants do at quarterback, because right now they're out of position for quarterback, which I know makes you happy, but
yes.
if they trade, they can trade up though. And if they do trade up for Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, and suddenly they have some stability at quarterback, then I think that could help Neighbors. But if they go into next year with Drew Lock and they sign some veteran, they're like, oh, we're just tanking for Arch Manning in 2026, then Neighbors is a second round pick. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think I think there's going to be I think people are going to look at that team and think they're terrible, and that will depress his value significantly. I would imagine. So I think Neighbors will end up being a second round. I mean, he'll be a solid second round pick for sure. Thomas, what is his numbers? Let me see. I would imagine
he's been amazing lately.
Yeah. My guesstimate is that the Jags are going to have a better general vibe going into 2025. And so I think, they'll still have Trevor Lawrence. Who knows what the coaching situation is going to be? Who knows what they'll do in off season? But I think people will be going into 2025 feeling better about the Jaguars than the Giants. And so I would imagine that Thomas Jr. will be late first, early second, and Neighbors will be mid second. That's my guess.
Yeah, we'll have to kind of figure out who the top 10 are, because I have a feeling Thomas might be in, as Sue said, in the 8 to 10 range. I think he'd be usually first round, but maybe sneaks in the second. Where I think Neighbors is probably second, maybe sneaks into first.
It also depends on how many receivers. We've just seen this movement over the last 7 or 8 years. There's so many receivers getting into the top, first 2 rounds. I wonder, this year with several receivers that have, that disappointed, and this year kind of running backs kind of, bouncing back and we have a really strong. I wonder if that shifts a little bit. And so it will depend on how many receivers, because I'm thinking Jamar Chase and Puka are still going to go ahead of him, and Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and Nico Collins. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5. So there's at least 5 guys that are going to go ahead of those guys, I think, before you get to Thomas, Neighbors. Amon-Ra St. Brown maybe is in that mix. So A.J. Brown. So you may have 7 or 8 guys that go before Brian Thomas. I might push him out of the first round, actually, depending on how many running backs go in the first round.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll have to see. It'll be interesting. Next Jets coach, Rex Ryan or RFK Jr. Depends on what their Madden ratings are, of course. John asking, if you swap Lamar or Allen or Lamar with Burrow, what would the Bengals record be? So they're 8-8 right now. I think with Allen, I think they might be about the same, 8-8. But with Lamar, I think they'd be a little bit worse, 7-9. I don't think Lamar's on the same level as the other guys.
That's a good question. It's a good question. I don't think they would be dramatically better or worse either with Allen or Lamar. So I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
But I do wonder though, with Jackson's ability to run, that compensates a lot for offensive line the way the Bengals, and so the little more ball control offense maybe that helps the defense a little bit. I don't know. I think maybe I'm a little higher on Jackson than you are.
Yeah, I feel like you have to kind of design your offense around him too. It's a weird thing to consider. Whereas like I feel like Josh Allen could slot in easier, and he could also run around too. So maybe
Allen can fit in any offensive system because he's
right.
so versatile. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe the Bengals win one more game because of what you just said about the mobility. So, yeah. The point of getting so stupid in the MVP race to say what would an average quarterback look like on a team. Well, I don't know. I think it just shows you how valuable that player is. Like, you could downgrade any player to a mediocre player and see how valuable they are to the team. I think. I don't know.
You can't. Football doesn't have the same analytical analysis because there's so many moving parts and there's so many interconnected things. Where like in baseball, they've got the WAR stat, which really does. It's not a perfect stat. Sometimes it can be a little bit manipulated, but generally, wins above replacement in baseball really does generally tends to, really kind of give you a good, adequate feel of what's really happening on the field. It's one of the stats we can go, that stat really does kind of represent for us what's actually happening, where that's not necessarily the case in football. Football, there's really no one stat that does that. There's just too many moving parts.
Yeah. What will Burrow and the Bills have? Like 13 wins? Yeah, exactly. Burrow. Yeah, they'd have the same number of wins, I think. Anyway, let's go on to Rams 13, Cardinals 9. I don't understand this Rams team. Like first of all, I'm happy they won the NFC West because I bet them to win the NFC West at the beginning of the season, 4-1. So that was a nice win. But like this Rams team, they either score like 40 or 10, or it's like not like nothing in between. In this game, they had such issues blocking. Rob Havenstein was out. There's only one lineman. It's not like they were missing multiple linemen. Their right tackle made such a big difference. Stafford just couldn't get any sort of protection. So Puka Nacua was the only guy doing anything. And if you're doing like best ball for the playoffs, like I don't know, like where you even draft Cooper Kupp at this point, just because he's like 4 of the past 5 games, he's given you like absolutely nothing. It's just been all Puka Nacua and also Kyron Williams to an extent, although he didn't do as much here. For the Cardinals, so this is a big name I wanted to get your opinion on. Michael Carter, 13 of 70. And I ask you because Week 18 DFS, he's 4,700. James Conner put on IR today. Trey Benson on IR. Amari DiMarcado on IR. It's the Michael Carter show. Do we play him at 4,700?
Roll the dice, bro. Roll the dice. Let's go for it.
Yeah. That's all I'm thinking.
4,700 with a starting running back on a decent team that may have some motivation to want to play in this game well. Go for it.
Yeah. I think I'm going to do it.
I think he's better than Khalil Herbert at 5,100.
Yeah, different slate, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, that's right.
Trey McBride finally scored a touchdown. I feel like I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Like I feel like this would mean like the floodgates are open. He's going to score like 4 touchdowns next week. Because we saw that with Jefferson, right? He didn't score for 7 weeks, and then he scored a touchdown. And then he had like 3 right away. I feel like that's usually how it goes for some reason. I don't know. It's just anecdotal, but
I hope not, because if he has this incredible end of the season, then that'll push up his value going in the fantasy drafts next year. So let's hope that's not the case.
Does that mean you're targeting him next year? Because it sounds like you are.
Well, I mean, I would love to have him at the right price, know, but I would imagine he's going to get overdrafted. We haven't talked about any tight ends yet.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume you think McBride is going to be the second tight end taken next year, or do you think he's going to be first? Because Brock Bowers, I think, is the other guy.
I think Bowers, and I think there's going to be a gap between him, and I think the competition will be McBride or Kittle. I mean, Kittle was going in like rounds 6 this year, 6 or 7. That's going to be different. I mean, he had a really good season. I would imagine Kittle will bounce back And so, yeah, I don't know where Bowers will go, but those guys will go around a round and a half later probably. So if Bowers is late second in a standard league, those guys will be early fourth, mid fourth. Kittle or McBride, my guess.
Yeah, Brock Bowers is going second round in best ball.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you're right about that. What about Marvin Harrison Jr.? Like, he has so much potential. You can't give up on him.
Oh yeah. Oh no, of course not.
But like, it's insane how early he was going this year. Like, in best ball, he's going like at the turn, which is crazy. At the round one, round two turn, I should say. But yeah, I don't like. Where do you think Harrison ends up going? Because it's either going to be like a great buy low situation, or people are just going to still be hyped up about him, despite his bad rookie season, just because of the big name. Like, I don't know. I don't know what the public sentiment's going to be on him.
I think people are going to sour. That's my guess.
Okay.
I just my general sense is that people are going to sour. Like, we've seen that so many times. Like, a player is hyped, and then he disappoints, and then there's this overreaction. And so I would imagine he's going to be drafted like a low end wide receiver 3. So I mean, like, that's that. I think that's how people are going to view him. And I'm looking at last year's, like, going into 2024, low end wide receiver 3s would have been drafted like 78th overall.
Oh, okay. You think he's going to go 7th round?
But he's got too much name recognition. He's not going to go that late. That's not realistic. That's, now that I'm thinking about it. But I would be shocked if it's more than like 5th
round. In best ball, he was going, like, for most of the year, he was still going 2nd round. But toward the end of the year, he was going like 3rd, maybe 4th round. Like, I never saw him fall to the 5th round in best ball. Like, the name recognition, as you said, it's just too big. Everyone saw him just ball out in college. Not just name recognition, just like people remember him from Ohio State. So,
right.
And his upside there, like, he could just flip on the switch and just be great. Like, we've seen guys struggle in their first year and just dominate in their second year. It could happen. So I guess it depends where he goes. Like, the value is going to dictate what you do with him. Like, if he's going 3rd or 4th round, there's no way I'm taking him. If he's going 7th round, then I'm going to take a shot on him. I don't know where the sweet spot is, maybe 6th, but you just have to go for the upside, I think.
If he's going in the 7th round, I absolutely want to have him there. The fact that he didn't slip in drafts, though, at all, in best ball drafts throughout the course of the year, leads me to think that the name recognition and the general knowledge of his abilities is going to that leads me to think he's not going to slip. Like, I think I'm wrong. I think my original thinking he'll slip to maybe 6 or 7 is probably way off. He's probably going to be a 3rd or 4th round pick, which in that case I'm not going to get him.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, I think he's going to be a 4th round pick, but I feel like we said that like 20 guys are going to be in the 4th round. I'm curious what this 4th round is going to look like, because we like put 20 guys there already.
Yeah, they don't even know the 4th round has 38 picks. I don't know if you know that.
That's true. All right. Anyway, we go to Sunday here, and I know this one was near and dear to your heart. Giants 45, Colts 33.
This was a glorious game. This is amazing. I loved it.
Yeah. Please go take it away to talk about how much you enjoyed this game.
Oh man, I mean, it was so great to watch Drew Lock have just an unbelievable game. I mean, I thought it was Joe Montana reincarnate. I mean, it was he was accurate, and just it was wonderful for him to lead them right out of the first spot of the draft. And now they're going to draft some guard from Iowa State. It'll be just glorious. I mean, I think about the Redskins getting Jaden Daniels, which is great for them if you're a fan of that team. But as an Eagles fan, I want every other team in the league in the division to suck. And so them drafting Daniels is, man, you're going to face him twice a year for the next whatever number next decade plus. You don't want the Giants to have a good quarterback too. That would just be awful. So yeah, this was a great game. I mean, on a serious note, Drew Lock legitimately looked good in this game. I don't expect him to ever look good again. This was just, this was just the football gods shining down on me, smiling on me, and it was for me. They did it for me, certainly. That's and the Colts in this game. Oh my goodness, this defense looked terrible. Joe Flacco has moments where he's great, and then moments where he's just, what are you doing, dude? Like, you just like the state of quarterback in the NFL is just so bad. There's so many, like, it's just this, from any given week, there's so many bad players playing quarterback in the NFL. Like, there's really like 5 guys that are good at it. Like it's just, or maybe it's, maybe a few more than that, but it's just, quarterback in the NFL is so bad. And watching this game, while it was sort of so legitimately entertaining, both quarterbacks were like, dude, Joe Flacco needs to retire. Like, go take your pension and go home. Although he's probably still better than Anthony Richardson, which is probably a bad situation if you're a Colts fan. The guy who stuck out to me the most on the Giants, we've already talked about neighbors, but the guy who stuck out to me is Tracy. He's the guy that has stuck out to me over the last couple games where he's played. I think he's going to be a legitimate player in 2025. Like, I don't know where he gets drafted, but I could imagine. I'm trying to think. Look at his numbers. Would it surprise you if let me see. I'm trying to think of, I think he legitimately has a chance to be drafted in the first. I don't know. Let me see. Look what his stats are. I don't know. Is he drafted in the first 3 or 4 rounds?
I was about to say 4th round, but again, I don't know. I don't know where you put all these guys in the 4th round. I think probably 3rd or 4th round. Yeah. Look, it depends what else they add at running back, but I like, he's looked good. He's looked explosive. The issue with him has been fumbling. He had a lot of fumbles. So you have to worry about him getting benched at some point if he keeps fumbling. But no, I mean, he definitely looks the part. Yeah, I can definitely see him go. I can see him getting taken in the 3rd round in some leagues.
Yeah.
But we talked about neighbors already. Drew Lock. We talked. You mentioned Flacco. We'll have to see if Anthony Richardson returns this week. So Kenny, I did this research for Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and I talked about it. So I'll spare everyone the guessing game because I asked this yesterday, but I'm going to ask you another question in relation to this. So I looked up all the quarterbacks who have thrown at least 70 passes since 2020. There have been 95 of them. Dorian Thompson-Robinson ranks 95th out of 95. So the worst quarterback we've seen since 2020, among qualifiers, right? Where do you think Anthony Richardson ranks in the top 95?
Oh my gosh. You wouldn't be asking me if it was very high. It can't be 94. Like, it can't be that low. Can it be?
I will give you some names. 94 is Trace McSorley. I'll give you the bottom 5. He's not in the bottom 5. 93 is Jake Luton. I don't know how he had 70 passes. 92. I think he started like 2 games. 92 Trevor Siemian. And then 91, the Silver Snake, Spencer Rattler.
Let's go. I mean, is Taylor Heineke in that bottom range somewhere?
He's not. I'm looking at. No, he's not here. No, I don't see him.
Because Heineke's thrown 70 passes in the last couple of years, right? I mean,
yeah, but these are some awful quarterbacks. I'll read you the rest of the bottom 15. Just guess where Richardson is first.
He's 83rd.
He's 89th.
Oh gosh, that is painful.
The 7th worst quarterback. The 7th worst quarterback in since 2020. The other guy worse than I mentioned the bottom 5, Philip Walker, PJ Walker, whatever you want to call him, XFL legend, is 90th. Richardson's 89th. Rounding out this group, Zach Wilson, 88th. Dwayne Haskins, 87th. John Wolford, 86th. Mike Lennon, 85th. Easton Stick, 84th. Jeff Driscoll, 83rd. Richardson ranks amongst all these bums at quarterback. Like, that is unbelievable to me. If you were to tell me like he's 60th, 65th, I'd be like, okay, there is room for improvement. He's a young guy. He has potential, sure.
Yeah.
But he is a bottom 10 quarterback in the last half decade amongst all qualifiers. I'm not even talking about guys who've thrown 30 passes, like 70 passes. Is there any fixing this guy? Like what do you do with Richardson next year? Because like fantasy potential is there because he can run, but at some point, if he keeps being this terrible, they're going to have to bench him. So like where do you draft Richardson, or do you not draft Richardson? What do you think? What do you do about him?
If I'm the Colts front office, I think I would give up on Richardson. I don't think he like what that stat doesn't shock me because the eye test shows me this guy doesn't belong in the NFL, or this guy needs so much coaching and effort to get him there. Like he needs legitimate coaching. Like the NFL used to do this. This was a part of the and this changed recently. Like I remember in the 90s, early 2000s, there was a lot of emphasis on development. Like that's not the case anymore. Coaches, like assistant coaches, don't really coach players up. As now, it's all about the system you're in. Like the goal isn't to develop you in your skills. The goal is to teach you how to play our system. That's a very different philosophy. That kind of changed around 2007, 2008. So, I think Shane Steichen is the kind of guy that would try to he's kind of a more throwback flavor of coach. At least I think he is. So if he's not going to do it, I don't know where Richardson even goes. Like if he's in Seattle, or he's going to get coached up in Seattle, is he getting coached? Like Sean McVay didn't have patience to coach up Jared Goff, right? Like shipped him off. He's like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to teach this guy how to play. I want him to run my system, and he can't do it. So I got to get someone else. That's the NFL's approach now. And so you got to find a situation with a quarterback's coach and a front office that's willing to be patient with him. Anthony Richardson's not ready to play football right now. So unless you're really going to be patient with this guy, I don't know what you do with him. I think you got him. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. You spent the 4th overall pick with him. I guess you're stuck with him for now, but I don't have any confidence in the guy.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to have any confidence. I think they might just be stuck with him for one more year, and I'd say bring in a veteran to challenge him, but that's what they kept doing. How many veterans have they brought in? Philip Rivers, Matt Ryan. I know some of this before Richardson, but they had Rivers, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Joe Flacco. All these guys failed. You're going to bring in, who are they going to bring in this time? Kirk Cousins. I don't know. Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold. What are they going to do here? I don't know. I feels like whatever they do is not going to work. I feel like, if I'm the Colts, I'm like, just let Richardson do the whole year next year. If he's great, it's going to work out. If he's terrible, we're going to get the number 1 pick, and we're going to get, guess who? We're going to get Arch Manning, Peyton Manning's nephew, and we're going to have another Manning for another 15 years. So I think that's how it works. I feel like you just give him one more year, see what happens. And if you're awful, you're just be awful.
It's really, if you're a Colts fan, it's a bummer. I feel bad for fans that they have to deal with watching this guy. This guy's not even competent to play the. But the thing is, the talent is unbelievable. The raw athleticism is remarkable. The ability to throw the ball down the field. I mean, he throws the ball with the flick of the wrist. The ball just jumps off his hand and just flies 80 yards down the field. I mean, he's got a talent that is unreal. So you get why they'd want to draft the guy, but he's not the right guy. And at the end of the day, the passing offense with him at the helm is can you trust any of these receivers if he's a starting quarterback next year? You're just they're always going to be inconsistent. You're never going to trust them.
Yeah, guess what? I in my spy lineup this week, I finished 70th or something, and I guess who I had at 4,700 is Michael Pittman Jr. It's because I saw Flacco was going to start. And I'm like, sign me up for these Colts receivers. If it was Richardson, I would not have touched Pittman at all.
Yeah.
It just, yeah. I mean, that's what happens. You keep in mind, like next year when you're looking at these receivers, if it's Richardson, you can't. Like I wouldn't even draft any of these guys if it's Richardson.
Right.
But if they sign, for example, if they sign Cousins and they go with him, like suddenly Pittman is consideration of like what 6th-round pick or something.
Yeah.
And then Downs probably around the same area. Alec Pierce, maybe a late round flyer. You're looking at those guys. But again, with Richardson, you can't draft any of them.
No, the O for opportunity is always there. It's like, could Richardson, throw 3 touchdown passes to Michael Pittman in a game? Sure. But there's always a possibility that Richardson, throws for 57 yards in a game. It's like that's a realistic possibility at any given time. So it's like, oh great, my 7th round pick, Michael Pittman, my wide receiver 3, or my flex is getting me to 2 catches for 11 yards. That's great, awesome. Good to know I'm going to lose this week.
There have been games when he's had even worse stats than that. It's like 1 catch, 3 yards. It's like awful. It's so bad. I think the Eagles let the Giants beat them this weekend to keep them slipping down the draft board. That's why they're not playing Barkley. Yeah, it's next level thinking there.
Right.
Bills let the Patriots win for the same reason. Yeah, he thrown 3 touchdown passes and go 3 for 31 through the air. Yeah. It's I don't know. They have to change something there. But let's move on. Raiders 25, Saints 10. I don't know, like there's not really much to say about this game outside of that. We already talked about Bowers. Like none of these guys playing this game are going to be starting in fantasy. Oh, Jacoby Myers, I guess, but Jacoby Myers. That's it. Like there's no other player here who's going to be fantasy relevant next year unless they're like massive injuries, right? Like I don't see anyone.
Right.
So
I do think Jacoby Myers. I mean, he's been perennially underrated the last few years. I would imagine that will happen again, right? He's going to come into the league. No one's going to be thinking the Raiders are great, and unless something dramatic happens in the offseason. But generally, people are going to be thinking that they're not that great, and Myers will be a good. I think I drafted him in the 11th round in one league in this year. I drafted him in another league. I'm like, it was great value.
Yeah, I think you sniped him from me, unfortunately.
I mean, it's just like there are certain guys that just for whatever reason, I don't know that it varies from guy to guy, but for reasons that I don't always understand, certain guys just they're not on people's radar in the summertime going into the league. And and he doesn't have the upside that other guys might have. So I think I think sometimes guys are like, oh, we want upside. And I totally get wanting to draft for upside. Myers is not going to have he's not going to be a wide receiver, he's not going to be a top 10 wide receiver at any point in his career. So I understand why he's not going to have the upside, but if I can get a viable flex option in the 11th round, sign me up.
Yeah, he was a steal because remember he was the number 2 receiver because Devontae Adams is there, and then the thing like I had him atop near the top of my sleepers list because I thought that there's a good chance Adams would be traded, and when that happened, suddenly he would get more targets because at the beginning of the year he wasn't doing much because he was behind Adams and Bowers. Then once Adams moved on, suddenly Myers came to life. So yeah, it was a good pick on your part. I was sad about it because I wanted him. Jaguars 20, Titans 13. We already talked about Brian Thomas Jr. Although I do want to return to one comment that I saw earlier. Outside of that, like feels like with this running game, I don't understand Doug Peterson. Like 1 week it's Bigsby getting all the carries, next week it's ATN, next week it's Bigsby, next week they split. I don't get it. I guess like he'll probably say if he was on the show, he'd be like, "Oh, it's matchup related." I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, it's working out so great for you with all your wins in these matchups. So good job. I played in that lineup that I told you about in the spy. I played Tajay Spears cheaply, but he got concussed, so I don't think he's going to play this week. Tony Pollard might be back. Calvin Ridley 5 for 84, all that in garbage time. Chiggy Bang Bang Okonkwo 5 for 42, also all in garbage time. The Titans didn't do anything until the second half. And I suspect that actually I think this week they could do better because they're going to be playing against Houston's backups. So I think you could play these guys pretty confidently in DFS this week against reserves. But I saw that like The Titans, they currently have the number 2 overall pick. If they lose, they'll get either Shador Sanders or Cam Ward. So suddenly Ridley will look better next year, unless they blow it by winning. So we'll see if that happens. So any thoughts on this game?
I only saw highlights, so I didn't watch the game. I had to, I can only torture myself so many hours a week. So, I didn't see this whole game. So just highlights and just thinking to myself, why are these guys in the NFL? Like, why are these teams in the NFL? They should just like kick them out of they should do like the soccer leagues of Europe, where they retract teams or they demote them to a lower league. Like both the Jaguars and the Titans should be demoted to the XFL or like what's the United UFL, is that what it's called now? Whatever what's the lower.
Did they just? Isn't it still XFL? I don't know. I can't remember.
Anyway,
what happened to NFL? Make NFL Europe again. Send them overseas.
They should be demoted. That's how I feel about these two teams right now.
Yeah.
Funny. A couple weeks ago, it seemed like the Titans were not going to be in the running for a quarterback, and we were talking about them kind of being stuck with, Will Levis or maybe an Aaron Rodgers is the guy they go after or whatever. Now they're in a very different position, right? And so, that could change the game quite a bit. This team has some talent. They're not like an absolutely terrible team. They downgraded their coach and they have no quarterback. So we'll see what they do. If Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears are both on this team next year, which by all accounts it would seem like they would be, they're both kind of depressed for value. They because of the situation, they're not. Tajay Spears is not going to produce. Like this offense is not going to be good enough to support 2 running backs. Unless something dramatic changes. So. And they don't have any receivers that we care about. And Chiggy Bang Bang over here, I started him in a fantasy title game. He was okay. He scored whatever 4 points. Okay, it was fine. As far as the Jaguars go, Jaguars have of all the bad teams right now in the NFL, they're the team with the most upward mobility. I mean, probably, because they have a quarterback with pedigree, Right. Trevor Lawrence comes back. We've just not seen Trevor be the Trevor Lawrence that we thought he would be. So with a real coach, maybe he becomes that, right? And they got to move. Is Trevor Etienne, is Etienne going to be gone? They can't. Come on. Why is this guy on the team? Why is this guy in the NFL? Come on.
I don't understand. Bigsby has looked much better as a runner. Yeah, he's not a receiver out of the backfield. So, you can use ATN as a receiver out of the backfield. That should be his role. And yet they just keep giving ATN more carries in half the games. And you're like, okay, I guess they're going back to ATN. And then the next week they give Bigsby more carries. So I don't know what Doug Peterson's doing. It's going to be working on his resume soon enough, so it'll be fine. But I think that if they get great coaching for Trevor Lawrence, if they get Ben Johnson in, or if they get Liam Cohen in from Tampa, I think that could really get Trevor Lawrence going, because he obviously has a lot of talent. He's coached miserably, and then he's been coached on a subpar level so far in his career. And in one of the years, he went to the second round of the playoffs. So I think if they give him a really great offensive-minded head coach, then the sky's the limit for him, especially with Brian Thomas Jr. So. You're right. I mean, they have the most upward mobility right now of all the bad teams.
And Doug Peterson is he's done here, right? They're not bringing him. There's no chance of bringing him back, right?
That would be it would be shocking if they brought him back.
And he's done as a head coach in the NFL, right? I mean, he's not going to get another job, right?
Well, I would think not. And then I saw a report from Tom Pelissero saying that the Jets were considering Ron Rivera. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess anyone has another chance, right? I don't understand that at all.
Doug Peterson has made it clear he does not want to be a coordinator, and so he has toyed with being head coach at the college. I know there's been rumors that he would coach at the college level, and so or even high school. He said he likes coaching high school, so maybe he'll just go back and coach. But he has said he has no desire to be a coordinator or an assistant coach ever again.
Yeah.
So
you can
get a job in the college ranks, right? I mean, some some mid-sized college will offer him a job, right?
Yeah, he could coach against Belichick, and maybe he could beat him again in a big game. That would be fun. This is the comment I wanted to bring up. A bag that says we all laughed at the guy who drafted Brian Thomas in the third round, and now we all look like idiots. He's referring to, of course, what's his in our league, Dwayne. He's referring to Dwayne in our league. Dwayne he's a good guy. Dwayne is he is a man who is ahead of his time each year because in 2017 when Patrick Mahomes was a rookie. No, it was 2018. It was Mahomes' first year. He drafted Mahomes in the fourth round. Mahomes is going average position like 8th to 10th round. He drafted Mahomes in the fourth round and ended up working out well for him. Same thing here. Brian Thomas is going like 7th, 8th round, maybe even later. He drafted Thomas in the third round. We all laughed and ended up working out for him. But like he could take these guys like a little bit later and get better players earlier and like still beat everyone to the punch. Like he just doesn't get that part. But he's somehow great at like nailing these like high upside guys.
Dwayne has in the 19 years that I've been in the league with Dwayne, I think Dwayne has won like 3 playoff games. So, listen, he's a good guy. He always has me good, encouraging Instagram messages. He's always like, I post photos of my daughter, and he's always like, very congratulatory or compliment, encouraging. He's a nice guy, but let's not overstate Dwayne's success in fantasy football over the last 19 years.
Yeah, he's had some good calls. Let's just say he's had some good calls, but the execution has not gone well.
Yeah, I remember there was a year he also drafted C.J. Anderson. Was it C.J. Anderson with Denver? Where C.J. Anderson was going I think he was going late second, early third. He drafted him in the first round. Yeah, and C.J. Anderson ended up having a really good season. You're like, well, you could have drafted the guy a round later, easily. But anyway, so there's a couple examples like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it has had some okay calls. It's had some good calls, but a lot of bad calls. Is Monday NFL fire the head coach today? Yeah, it's Black Monday. Who are your first 5 to go? Well, a lot of the coaches have been fired already, right? Who else is left? I think Dave. Yeah. Doug Peterson, we mentioned him. Brian Dable, I think he's gone. Who else? I mean, obviously the interim coaches are going to be gone. I don't think those don't count. Maybe Shane Steichen. There's a chance, given the Colts had high expectations. I think they might give him one more year, but he could definitely go. There's some talk Gerard Mayo's going to go. I think they bring him back one more year. Mike McDaniel could go if the Dolphins still make the playoffs. I think he stays on. I mean, he was just extended, so you never know. Stephen Ross is kind of weirdo, but I think that I think he will be back with the extension. Who else is there? Stefanski's safe. He toes the line with the ownership. He's going to be around again. I'd be shocked if he goes, unless he wants out. Brian,
I'd be shocked if the Colts fired Steichen. That seems like that would be a bad move.
Yeah, you never know what Irsay is going to do, though. He's a complete wild card. If the Titans fire Brian Callahan after 1 year, I wouldn't be too surprised about that, given how bad he was. We've seen some one and done coaches. I think he could be one of them. And then Antonio Pierce, he's gone for sure. And that's it, I think, because all the other coaches are fired already. Yeah, we mentioned them. Ben Johnson, Florida. Shad Khan's not a cheapskate. You just can't find a good GM coach. Yeah, he's not a cheapskate, definitely. Antonio Pierce is a loser, jackass. Yeah. So definitely, we've had. It's a shame because Black Monday used to be I would say it's not fun because you don't see guys lose their job, but this used to be a lot of news coming on, this guy got fired, then this guy got fired, this guy fired. It happens so often now that all the coaches are gone already. So just don't see that happen anymore. Anyway, let's get to the next game. We have Bills 40, Jets 14. This is 40-0 when Rodgers got benched. Rodgers was awful in this game. He only misfired 6 times, but he had 2 picks. he shoved the guy out of bounds, and then he laughed about it. So I think this might be his last start ever coming up. So I actually think he's going to have a good game coming up against Miami. I think he'll rebound. Josh Allen, you could say like Tony Romo was joking about how he like is like last touchdown of the game. Romo was like he sewed up his MVP there. It's like pretty funny. I think he's won MVP, and he's going first in playoff best ball drafts. So not a surprise. So any thoughts on this game?
Pour one out for my fantasy team that had Aaron Rodgers starting at quarterback. What a terrible decision that was. Brock Purdy was on my bench, scoring 37 points. Aaron Rodgers literally in the starting lineup with 0. It doesn't matter. Even if Brock Purdy was in my starting lineup, I still would have lost. So imagine how tilted I would be if I would have lost because I started Purdy, because I started Rodgers over Purdy. I'd be on full tilt for 6 months.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. So, not much to say. I would imagine Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams are gone. As I'm looking at the Jets, my biggest question mark is Breece Hall. We had a lot of high hopes for him this year. And I know it's easy to think like, the offensive situation wasn't great there. But like bad running backs or great running backs should still be able to overcome terrible situations to some extent. We saw it with Saquon for years in New York. Like we saw him overcome terrible situations and still be a decent fantasy production, give us good, fantasy production. Is Hall not as good as we thought? Am I, Garrett Wilson not producing doesn't, receivers are so much more impacted by the quarterback and the offense, like the offensive production and the running back is. So I'm not as concerned about Garrett Wilson long-term. I think he's a great player. He'll be fine. I am concerned about Hall, and I don't know where he's going to be drafted next year. I haven't really thought about where I would put him, but did we misunderstand what we were getting with Hall?
I think we saw Hall play a lot better in previous years. I think something was off with him this year. Like it seemed like, remember the Breece Hall in the first few years, even after coming back from the torn ACL, like he still was able to go the distance anytime he touched the ball. Like we didn't see that this year. Like can you remember like a long Breece Hall touchdown this year? Like
nope.
The year before and this first year, it'd be like every other week or every third week we'd see like Breece Hall go 70 yards. We didn't see that at all this year. So something was off with him. He's not like he's old. He did have that knee injury, but still, like he was good last year. So I don't know. Maybe there's something. Maybe something happened in the offseason, distractions or something, and he wasn't able to be fully in shape or something. I don't know, but there was definitely some regression, and I would be concerned heading into next year. Where would you draft him next year?
Man, it's going to depend to some extent what the Jets do in the offseason with quarterback and the rest of the offense. The thing is that you start making a list of running backs, and it gets pretty scarce pretty quick. I'm looking at the running backs, just like real quickly. Barkley and Bijan obviously are ahead of him. Jahmyr Gibbs, Devon Achane clearly ahead of him. Chase Brown's going to be ahead of him. I would imagine Christian McCaffrey still will have some sort of bounce back. Josh Jacobs certainly ahead of him, but I probably have Bucky Irving ahead of him. Kyren Williams ahead of Derrick Henry, still ahead of Breece Hall. Probably Joe Mixon. The Boise State running back coming out. Maybe he gets drafted high. Maybe James Cook or Ray Davis, maybe Chuba Hubbard, like Jonathan Taylor, like Breece Hall, like pretty quickly is like a late third round pick. Yeah. Like if you have all these guys ahead of him and you got a bunch of receivers ahead of him and you throw a couple quarterbacks and a tight end or two ahead of him, all of a sudden Hall has now become a late third round pick.
Yeah, he was going late third round and best ball at the end of the year. Yeah, you're right on target with that. Yeah. And that's PPR where, Breece Hall is going to be even better. So, it's I don't know. I think I think there's a good opportunity to buy low on this because we've seen him be so electric. He was going top 3 this year. And then, now he's going to be going late third. If he's going late third round, I'm more than willing to roll the dice on him and see if he can rebound. Because, like I said, he's not an old player. I don't know. I think that there's a chance. Like there might have been an undisclosed injury. There might have been distractions. I think there's a chance he rebounds. So
the only question mark I have, like late third, fourth round, definitely that's worth it. Probably late third, yes. My only concern is, okay, early in his rookie year, he was very good but inconsistent, and then injured, and then came back and was covering from injury, was inconsistent, and then last year at the end of the year had a 6-week stretch, 7-week stretch where it's as good as anything we've ever seen. Like he was phenomenal, toward the end of the year last year. And then we saw this year. Like really, we've seen him be good for about 8 games in his career. I mean, it does make me a little bit nervous. Maybe did he just catch lightning in a bottle? Maybe he's not that good. And then a third round pick is he a bust? And that makes me not excited.
Yeah, it's tough. What about the other running back in this game? We had a question about him. Will Cook be overvalued next year as he leads the league in rushing touchdowns with 15? Usually we see regression with these guys. Would you? I think. First of all, where do you think he goes? In best ball, where was he going? I think he was going like late second, if I remember correctly. Would you draft him later than that, or? I think I would.
Late second feels early for me. We have seen over the last couple of years, we've seen the running backs who lead the league in touchdowns not be highly drafted. Remember Devontae Freeman a couple of years back. LeGarrette Blount led the league in touchdowns. He was drafted late the next year. Derrick Henry, has not ever been never popped to number 1. So I think drafters in general don't not as swayed by that maybe as would think. I think people are going to go, yeah, that's not he's not that great.
Yeah.
Are we even sure he's back with Buffalo next year? Are we sure that he's in a Bills uniform and it's not Ray Davis as the main guy?
It could be Ray. Yeah, I mean, it could be Ray Davis. I don't know. I mean, Ray Davis had that one great performance against the Jets on Monday night. I drafted Ray Davis so much in best ball in the 13th, 14th, 15th round, and nothing came out. I can't believe I took all these gambit picks in rounds 13 through 16. I always drafted backups. It was Ray Davis, Blake Corum. I did some Zach Charbonnets, but all these backup running backs, and none of the starters got injured for some reason. It was what happened? I can't get a break. John says no. Cook has 1 year left on his contract, and then some other team can overpay for him. All right, so you got 1 more year of Cook in Buffalo. So there you go. All right, let's get to the next game. We have Buccaneers 48, Panthers 14. In that lineup for DFS last week, I had Mayfield as my quarterback. So, I mean, that's why I did so well. 359 and 5 touchdowns. I had Evans to go along with him, 8 for 97 and 2 touchdowns. And I also had Bucky Irving. So I did that quarterback, running back, receiver thing that we talked about. He had 20 for 113. He didn't score a touchdown, but he got tackled at the 1 yard line. He also had four catches, 77 receiving yards. The crowd was even chanting Bucky, Bucky, and then they threw the ball. Of course, it's come on, they're up 35-10. Just give the ball to him. It's stupid. Anyway, that's my only gripe with Tampa last week. They were amazing. otherwise. McMillan scored 2 touchdowns. I didn't have him in the lineup. Maybe I would have won the whole thing if I had him as well. I didn't even, and I also could have had Thielen too. I didn't have Thielen as a running back. It was stupid. Anyway, for the Panthers, there's Chuba Hubbard landed on IR, so that's why we saw Blackshear 8 for 20. Bryce Young, he had some good throws in this game, but he did have some bad moments as well. So they're gonna bring back Bryce Young for another year. Obviously, they don't have another choice. So we'll see. I mean, he's made stride this year. He's had some bad moments, obviously, terrible moments to start the year. but he's made some strides, and I think that like with another year of Dave Canales' coaching, and like if they find like a legit number one receiver and pair him and like put Thielen in the slot or keep Thielen in the slot and like have Leggett be the number two, I think that could be a pretty decent offense, especially given that their offensive line is pretty good. So yeah, where do you fall in this game? What are your thoughts?
The Bryce Young, like there was a stretch this year. He was playing really good football for about 5 games. That has kind of faded, so he's kind of regressed. But you know, as more film gets out there, you expect teams to kind of play him differently and adjust, and they've done that. And so the counter adjustment has not come from him or the coaching staff yet. So maybe that'll come in the offseason, and you'll. But there's enough that happened this year that you got to feel better. I mean, remember week 4, we thought they're going to release this guy, like this guy's out of the league. I mean, like literally, legitimately thought this guy's going to be out of the league by week 8. I mean, like that was the trajectory we were on in week 4. So to get to where we are now, where we're like, okay, like we feel good about this guy being our quarterback next year. If you're a Panthers fan, like that's a pretty big step forward. But at the end of the day, like as I look at this team, it's from a fantasy perspective, it's really Chuba Hubbard and nothing else. Like going into 2025, like I'm not going to feel excited about any of these options unless they really go out and get a number. And I don't even know what they can do. But I wouldn't be excited about any of these guys. The Buccaneers, though, I get excited about all these guys. I love McMillan. I love Irvin. By the way, did you know Bucky Irving's real name is Marquise? I didn't know that. Anyway, I learned that this week. So Bucky, Mike Evans, everyone looks great. Baker Mayfield, like, he's playing really good football right now. He's not amazing. He still makes mistakes, but I think this team is good enough where they can overcome occasional mistakes from him, and it's not that big a deal. And so, you played really good in this game. And, if you're in the NFC playoff race, like Buccaneers not the team you want to play in the playoffs. Like they're going to be a live dog in any game they play. And I think they're going to be a hard out for anyone, they have to match up against them. So, yeah, I think going in the next year, obviously Irving's going to be, he'll be a top 3 pick or top third, top 3 rounds.
Yeah,
I mentioned his name a moment ago. Evans will be right there. McMillan takes. I don't know where does Godwin fall in the mix though.
Ooh,
as I eat some peanut butter here.
Well, first of all, I think that I think you're right about Bucky Irving being a top 3 round guy, and I think that he's probably a 2nd round pick. I'd be pretty surprised if he falls after that. Just because like he's taken over the entire backfield. Like Rashad White, just based on these stats, you might see like 6 carries. Like a lot of that came in garbage time. It was all Bucky Irving here. Like he was getting all the workload.
Yeah.
So Chris Godwin might be hitting free agency this offseason. So it may not even matter. So we'll have to see where he goes. If he comes back, because he had a really good start to this year. And he was a great fit in Liam Cohen's offense because that's where the slot receiver was. It's like the Cooper Kupp role, back when Cooper Kupp was still a good player. And like he was outproducing Mike Evans for many weeks. And then he got injured, but he's gonna be 29. So he could be on the decline. I mean, it's not that old, but he's coming off a serious injury too. So where's he go? It's probably in standard leagues, probably 8th round, 9th round, something like that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably right. Yeah, it depends where he ends up. Obviously, whether he stays in Tampa or if he goes elsewhere. I kind of was just quickly thinking, going into 2025, unless something crazy happens, there's not going to be a dozen running backs I'd rather have over Bucky Irving. Like,
yeah,
he's going to be at worst the 11th running back off the board.
Mm-hmm.
Which 11th running back off the board in a standard league is almost always going to be a mid to late 2nd round pick.
Yeah.
PPR, maybe that shifts, but I mean he's decent out of the backfield too, so I don't think it's going to depress his value. I was originally thinking late third, but as you said, maybe even second. I think you're probably right. I think he's probably going to end up being I think he's going to end up being a solid second round pick in most formats.
Yeah, I think he will be.
It's funny. I hadn't really thought about that, so you just said that. But yeah.
Yeah. If Godwin leaves the free agency, McMillan is someone I think he's going to be hyped up a lot. People will see this great finish that he had to his rookie year, and I think people will kind of like expect him to make another leap, which I think could happen. I think it depends if Liam Cohen stays around, the offensive coordinator. I wonder if the Buccaneers would let him leave. Rather than keeping Todd Bowles. I feel like if the Buccaneers lose in the first round of the playoffs, or even if they don't make playoffs, and like Liam Cohen is offered a job, I wonder if they'd be like, okay, Todd Bowles hit the road. We're going to make Liam Cohen the head coach. Because look what he's done to Baker Mayfield. It's incredible work. So
yeah,
I don't know. I think that's what I would do, but I'm not a fan of Todd Bowles anyway. So
yeah. He is liked by the fan base in Tampa. So, yeah, for whatever that's worth. It may not be worth anything. But
who's Todd Bowles?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, Todd Bowles, yeah. So, he's kind of like the fans in, being in Orlando. You live in Orlando, a lot of Buccaneers fans here. Although this is kind of Jaguars country, oddly enough. There's more Jaguars fans in Orlando, even though Tampa's much closer geographically. But, yeah, there's a lot of Tampa fans, and Tampa fans generally seem to like Todd Bowles, and I don't fully understand why.
Yeah, I don't get it. He's a good defensive-minded coach, but as a head coach, he's not very good. All right, let's move on to Eagles 41, Cowboys 7. We had Devontae Smith over receiving yards as one of our props this week. He hit that very easily. My thesis on that, I think I told you this last week, was like you had week 2, remember Saquon Barkley dropped that pass. And then the next week he went off 140 and 2 touchdowns. Week 15, Jonathan Taylor dropped that ball before the goal line, embarrassed himself. Next week goes off for 210 and 3 touchdowns. And so Devontae Smith dropped the pass that would have won the game. And I thought Devontae Smith would go all out to kind of redeem himself, and he did. He had an amazing game. I captained him in the showdown. I almost won the showdown in this game. It was one of those like 20K to first. It wasn't like 100K to first. I finished like 7th place or something. I was like one move away because I played all Eagles and I ran it back with Turpin. If I ran it back with like someone else, I would have won the whole thing. So feels bad, but anyway, like Smith, just predictable, great performance. Barkley 167 became the 9th guy ever to have 2,000 rushing yards. Pickett got hurt. McKee came in. McKee looked better. My dad loves Tanner McKee. He thinks he should replace Jalen Hurts. And we get to see Tanner McKee this week. Out for Dallas, like they look completely lost without CeeDee Lamb. Rico Dowdle, I don't know how he had 104 rushing yards in a 41-7 loss. Like how's that?
It was all garbage. It was garbage time.
I know, but you never see that though. Like in a 41-7 loss, you seem like the other team run like 6 times. Like they just kept running it. Like
they didn't care.
Yeah, yeah. So all right, so take it away.
The Cowboys were totally checked out of this game by late second quarter. I mean, you could tell they were just totally checked out. They're ready. They've got their tea time set for January. I mean, this team is. By the way, Kenny Pickett actually looked significantly better in this game than he did in the Redskins game. So, like, and he was playing with broken ribs. So, like, I don't know. I don't think it's fair to like dog Kenny Pickett like in this game. Like, he played well and on broken ribs, and so. Tanner McKee, like I don't know if he's good. I don't know. He threw 6 passes, whatever. Like, and they were up, and I don't know. I didn't see anything from Tanner McKee that like got me like super excited. Like, the most popular guy in town is always the backup quarterback, right? Like that's the nature of and Philadelphia maybe is guilty of that than most towns.
True, yeah.
So, like, I mean, it's probably the case in a lot of cities, but Philly seems to be guilty of that. Maybe more so. But the Eagles this team was on all cylinders. The Dallas Cowboys, and I think this is the blueprint several teams have played. the Dallas Cowboys basically said on defense, AJ Brown's not going to beat us, and that's what they decided. And AJ Brown couldn't beat him. I mean, he had 3 catches in this game, and he was like, I mean, he was well covered on his touchdown catch. So, I mean, he made a phenomenal play. But I think it's interesting. We've seen this a couple weeks in a row now, where teams are basically saying, we're going to try to limit your running game, but we're not going to shut it down. We're going to shut down AJ Brown, and we're going to force everything else to beat us. And I think that's an odd strategy for teams to take. It's in essence what the Redskins did, and it kind of worked. Obviously, they won the game. But I don't think that's a good strategy. So for whatever reason, several teams in a row have decided AJ Brown's not going to beat us. That's what we're going to do. We're going to sell out to stop him, and he's going to get double or triple teamed. Like, do they forget Devontae Smith and Saquon Barkley play for that team too? I don't understand that strategy. But okay. And so whatever, I guess so. Yeah, they smoked them in this team. This Cowboys team is devoid of talent without CeeDee Lamb. And so I have no clue. I mean, CeeDee Lamb's still going to be a first-round pick next year, I'd imagine. And most, well, is that true? Yeah, right.
Would you take him over Brian Thomas Jr.?
That's a great question. Probably yes. Probably yes, but I think it's close.
Yeah, I think I'd go with Thomas actually. It's very close. I think for me it's closer with Neighbors and Lamb. I think I'd go Lamb over Neighbors. I think. I don't know. It's close. So
it will obviously depend on what happens in the offseason, but
yeah,
based on right now, yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough to order them. I'm gonna have to do my rankings for 2025 very soon. So yeah, I take Lamb. Sophomore slump can happen. That's true. But then again, Dallas just seems to fall apart all the time. It really depends what they do. If they bring back Mike McCarthy again, and if they don't fix the issues on the offensive line, if they don't give Lamb another number 2 receiver to draw some attention away from him, then I think I would go with the young guys. But if they do find a better coach, etc., then I think you can go Lamb. I think it's close. So yeah, I mean, I guess Lamb would probably be a first-round pick at this point.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
Rico Dowdle, I don't believe is a guy that actually should be a starter in the NFL. He's a fine player on your team, but whether or not they replace him, we'll see. If he's the only guy in town, I guess he has shown him. He rushed for 1,000 yards this year, which I was shocked. I'm totally shocked he got to 1,000 yards. So he proved me wrong. Back in August, I thought Zeke Elliott would be the leading rusher on this team. Obviously, that did not turn out.
Yeah.
So
they cut Elliott, and he cleared waivers.
I mean, yeah. So clearly not a guy that anyone wants. I mean, what a bum! What a bummer for him. And what a bum. So I would imagine they got to get something else running back. They got to draft someone. Because Rico Dowdle's not the guy. But if he ends up being the only show in town next year, I mean, he's proven he's a 1,000-yard rusher. I don't know where that puts him in the draft, but I mean, I don't know. Is he a 6th-round pick next year if he's the only running back on the team, the only viable running back?
Yeah, well, I've been drafting. I've Dallas drafting Ashton Genty, the Boise State running back. So obviously that would be a big upgrade if they don't fix the running back position. If it's still Dowdle or Doodle, as we like to call him here, I think that he's probably, like you said, 6th rounder. Maybe he sneaks in the 5th, maybe he falls to 7th, but probably on average a 6th-round pick. Yeah, he's like a flex guy, and he's probably gonna bust. We saw him he had a decent year, but I don't really trust that to continue.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of reminds me of Rashad White. If you're the only guy in town and the team is committed to you for whatever reason, okay, you'll probably be okay. But as soon as there's someone else there, you're going to lose the job.
Yeah, there are a lot of good running backs in this class, so they'll probably get someone, or it could be a committee if they wait till like round 3 or something. If you ever need someone to between -5 and 3 yards, he's your man. He's yeah. I tweeted out like he's a great option for a team needing an 8th running back. All right, so anyway, we have Dolphins 20, Browns 3. The Browns masterclass in tanking here. Dorian Thompson Robinson over Jameis Winston's working out beautifully. It's not. I mean, like the fact that like Judy had 12 catches still, like with Dorian Thompson Robinson, I think it's like says a lot about Judy's talent overall. Like we've seen him like not live up to it, but the second half of this year, he's just been a new man. I just worry if that's going to continue because was it 2 years ago? I think that he had a great finish to a season. Like he had that one game against Denver, he was just unbelievable, and then he went into the next year and just did nothing. So this guy's like his concentration comes and goes. Like you just never know. He's so unreliable. Like I feel like he's going to be overdrafted based on his finishes this year. I think people are going to look at it and like extrapolate it and be like, oh, like Judy would have had this many yards if he played the entire season this way. And like people are going to draft him early, and I think he's just going to disappoint them. So I don't 100%. Want him. What'd you say?
100%, I agree with you.
Yeah. So yeah, like he could succeed, but I don't think so. The Dolphins finally figured out what to do with their backup quarterbacks and to play them like they're Tua. It just like throws the ball behind the line of scrimmage every single time. Huntley went 22 or 26 for 225 and a touchdown, but like all of his throws are like right at the line of scrimmage. Like this is just like not that impressive. But that's like what Tua does. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about this, but Achane didn't have a good game. Tyreek Hill finally did with a backup. Johnny Smith once again scored a touchdown. What are your thoughts on this game?
I didn't watch most of this game. I watched about the fourth quarter on Red Zone, or I was watching Red Zone, and it was like it was one of the last games, so I got a chance to watch a chunk of the last bit there. But it's like this, both of these teams are just like neither one of these teams seem to be trying to win. Like I don't know, like Huntley, I don't like this, he doesn't belong in the NFL. And hey, do you guys forget you have like why is Devon Achane not like your primary guy again? Like I don't understand the play calling of this team. Like why is Devon Achane only getting like 10 carries in this game, and why is he not like a feature part of your offense? Like I don't understand. I don't understand this team. Anyway, Tyreek Hill finally came back. Good to him. Glad to see him back. Johnny Smith was pretty much was totally irrelevant to the end of the game. And so, yeah, it looks like, like I'm looking at this team. Devon Achane we talked about him last week. He's probably going to be a first round, maybe top 6 pick in the first round. It's my guess. I want no part of him next year in the first round. Like going into 2025, I'm not going to trust this team at all. The Browns, yeah, masterclass in tanking. Jerry Jeudy's probably going to end up being like, I don't know. He's probably going to be drafted like a low end wide receiver 2 is my guess, which makes him that'll make him be drafted around in the infamous 4th round again.
Yeah,
like 4th or 5th round. Do I want Jerry Jeudy in the 4th or 5th round? No chance.
no way.
And so yeah, I think this is. Deshaun Watson's going to be back, it looks like. So I don't know. I don't trust this team. Who knows what's going on with the running back position? Nick Chubb, who knows what happens with him? Like he may not be back. Like poor guy. He may not play again. Who knows? The biggest question mark, like both of these teams have a whole bunch of just yuck. I probably don't want to touch. The biggest question mark is going into 2025 is Tyreek Hill. Like
yeah.
Does he get drafted in the first 3 rounds? Do you trust him? I don't know for sure, but I'm looking at the list. I got a whole lot of receivers I trust before I want Tyreek Hill. Like I'm getting 20 guys before I want to touch Tyreek Hill. Like I'm nervous about this team. I think Tyreek Hill, in my mind, like I don't think I want him before round 4. And so, I mean, I don't know. Am I wrong? Am I crazy?
I think just based on his name recognition, he might go and like. I don't think he'll escape the third round. Um,
Maybe not even
so
second round.
yeah, he was going. Where was he going? Best ball toward the end, like late second, early third. So I think he probably goes around there, probably early third. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously getting up there in age. Like he's not the same explosive guy that we see just have ridiculous games. Like I feel like that Tyreek Hill is gone. But he's still going to be back. He's still the number one receiver there. If they fix their offensive line, they might be able to take more deep shots to him, which would help. Because their offensive line was so bad this year. That's why Tua just dinked and ducked the entire time. And plus he has to support his 10 kids, right? So he's going to be going all out to do that. So no, I do think he's going to be going third round, and I agree. I don't think I touch him there. Where would I take him? Probably like late fourth, fifth, something like that. But he's going to be like one of those guys who just doesn't get to me. So not going to get him. I did ask you. I think it was like week 5. I was like, where do you take Tyreek Hill in best ball? Because he was going like second round or late second round. Because he was going 101 in some drafts.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was like, he's falling to like 212, 301. Do I take him? And you're like, no. and that was a good call because he definitely did not perform up to that level.
Like I think I've got 16 receivers as of today that I think I'm going to want more than Tyreek Hill before going into 2025.
Do you have the list in front of you?
Yeah. Here's the guys that I think I'm going to want ahead of him.
Okay.
Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, obviously. Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. This is not necessarily ordered, just some giving guys that I know will be ahead of him. Brian Thomas, we already talked about. Neighbors, Amon-Ra St. Brown, AJ Brown. Mike Evans, probably. T. Higgins, probably based on where he's at. We'll see. Jackson Smith and Jigba, probably. Drake London, probably. Garrett Wilson, probably. George Pickens, probably. Devontae Smith, maybe. Like, it's 15 guys that I think you could make a pretty strong case pretty quickly. Those are all guys you're going to want ahead of him. Where does Marvin Harrison Jr. is in that mix? Where does Chris Olave end up? Like, do I want those guys ahead of Tyreek Hill? Probably yes. So
a healthy Metcalf, yeah.
A healthy DK Metcalf is in that mix. A healthy Stephon Diggs, maybe. I don't know. Probably not Diggs. But there's like
Nico Collins I didn't hear.
Oh yeah, Nico. Oh yeah, I must have. Did I miss Nico Collins?
I don't think I heard that name.
Zay Flowers is going to be in that category.
Yeah, like, I think he's in the like the Drake London, Devontae Smith range. I think like
13 to 16.
Yeah, those guys go. Where's Drake London go? And go next year, like fourth round, fifth round, fourth round.
Yeah,
probably?
He was going third round in some leagues. Yeah.
Yeah. So if he goes, and I think that was with Cousins' elevation. I think if he goes back to fourth round next year, I think that's where like Hill should go, like around Drake London.
This year, the
Lad Jameson.
This coming into 2025, the 16th receiver off the board was going average spot 33.
Okay, so that's end third round. So
and then who knows what happens with the Niners receivers with Debo and Ayuk. There's question marks there, obviously. Or not a question mark. Ayuk's going to be back in San Francisco, but whether or not Debo's back there will impact where those guys get drafted, obviously. So yeah, I think those are all question marks, right? Like, maybe Pittman with a QB can complete a forward pass.
Yeah, Pittman or Downs too. How far does Jalen Waddle fall? That's a good question. I actually like. I think Jalen Waddle could be a very nice buy low next year. I think he's going to take a huge hit, like a more of a hit than Tyreek Hill had. I said this before. Miami's biggest issue this year, outside of stupid coaching, was their horrible offensive line. They lost Robert Hunt and Connor Williams in the offseason, and then they had like Terran Armstead was just so banged up all the time. So like they never had a healthy offensive line. If they could fix their offensive line, like they can go back to taking those deep shots to Hill and Waddle. Like Waddle's not old yet, and so like he's going to have an opportunity to bounce back, and he's going to go late because like everyone just saw him suck last year. And so I don't like, where does he even go? Like 10th round, 11th round? Because like everyone, like he didn't do anything this year. What was his stats this year? Let's see. He was just he was so mediocre that I think he rebounds. He was let's see here. What was Jalen Waddle? He had 54 catches for 700 yards and 2 touchdowns. Like people are going to see that. Like they're not going to want to draft him in the top 10 rounds. But, like he could be drafted in like the 11th round, and he could perform like a 4th or 5th round pick. So I like him as a sleeper next year, assuming they fix their offensive line, which they may not do.
I would be surprised if he lasts that long. I think there's enough name recognition with him that I would imagine. My guesstimate is that he'll end up in the eight round range. Is my guess.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you're more optimistic on that. I don't know.
I'm guessing.
I just think that he was just such a big disappointment this year.
Oh yeah. I mean, you got guys coming out. You got Rashee Rice and Christian Kirk coming off of injuries. Like who knows, Chris Godwin. There's a crew of guys that I think will be drafted around that spot that I think Jalen Waddle will kind of be contrasted with.
Yeah, you have a couple of rookies coming in too with Hunter and McMillan, Burden. There may be 3 guys drafted in the first round, maybe more. So those guys are going to be drafted early as well. So I don't know. I feel like eventually you just keep getting pushed down more and more. All right, let's get to the last of the 4:00 games. Vikings beat the Packers 27-25. Jordan Love, it's something really bothered me about this game with him. He just kept throwing off his back foot for some reason. It just looked like the Packers were just going through the motions. Like Jacobs fumbled, a lot of weird penalties. Just it seemed like a little sluggish, as if they just didn't care about their seeding. So they could have moved up to the 5th seed, but I don't know. We had Evan on yesterday, and he was saying like teams usually don't really play for seeding. So that would explain like why the Packers like didn't give their full effort. But like they had a chance to come back at the end. Wicks had an okay day for DFS because he was like 4K. So 4 for 43 is good for 4K. For the Vikings, Darnold had a great game. Packers couldn't pressure him. Jefferson went nuts, although he didn't score a touchdown. Naylor scored a touchdown to frustrate fantasy owners, but Addison scored as well. Hawkinson got us over the receiving total. We had his prop. And then like Aaron Jones, for some reason, he wasn't on the field late in the game. But like we've seen that before. Like the Vikings will have like they'll barely play Aaron Jones over Akers, and then the next week they'll give him way more touches. So I don't know if they're just managing his workload here. This game did get out of control score wise until a late comeback anyway. So yeah, any thoughts on this one?
I actually watched the bulk of this game because I was rooting for the Packers to win. Because if the Packers would win this game, then the Eagles would still have a chance at the number 1 seed in the first round bye. But once the Vikings won this game, it was the Eagles were then locked into the 2 seed. So I was I think your read's the same. Like the Packers just didn't seem right. I'm looking at I was watching. I mean, Josh Jacobs looked mostly fine, but there did seem to be a sense of like a lack of urgency from this team, and like the play calling and the game planning seemed kind of blasé. And then I kind of had a thought, kind of about maybe late second quarter. I had a thought: are the Packers just maybe are they not wanting to show some stuff on film? Like, have they just sort of packed it in? I'm speculating. I don't know that for sure, but they more than any other team in the league, or maybe not more than any, but as much as any other team in the league, they are pretty exotic with their run packages. They run a lot of different unique, a lot of different formations. They run a lot of different plays. They run a lot of formations, which is something that a lot of teams do. The Lions do it. The Rams do it. The Niners do it. Tampa's now doing it. But not a lot of teams run that many formations where it's like, you have 60 or 70 offensive plays and you run, 45 different type of formations or motions. It's like, absurd. I don't even know how do players even remember all the it's like surprising how you don't have more penalties for like illegal formation or illegal procedure because I don't know, the Eagles don't do that. The Vikings don't do that. So, but the Packers did not do that in this game. Like there was a much more blasé. They ran a lot of the same formation. I think they ran some like games. They ran some what do they call it? 30 or is it 31 personnel? Like 3 running back. Like that's like wishbone. Like what is this? 1975. So it was. I get the sense about late second quarter. I got the sense that the Packers coaching staff almost like, hey, we're not going to win this game. We don't want to put anything on film. That's. I don't know if that happened. But that's what it seemed like. So kind of what you just said, like it kind of seemed off. Like I felt the same. When you said like they look like they're going through the motions, I kind of had a similar vibe, which was a bummer because I was frustrated because I wanted them to win the game. So anyway, all that to say, they have a lot of good players. I think the Packers will they'll be a formidable team in the playoffs. I still don't believe in the Vikings. I don't know. Maybe I should. Maybe I'm wrong. If they get the number 1 seed, playing in Minnesota is hard, and maybe they could go to the Super Bowl, I guess. It's possible, but I just have a tough time believing Sam Darnold's going to lead any team in the Super Bowl. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I just have a tough time believing in Sam Darnold. And but this team plays smart football. They're well coached. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They're not going to beat themselves. And you got to that comes down to coaching. And so, I think O'Connell deserves to be the coach of the year, probably, right?
100%. Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. Jordan Addison, does he go above or earlier than the infamous 4th round range? I think he does, right? Third round pick next year?
I would imagine so. What's his stats? Let me pull up the stats real quick.
He's been whatever stats are just so much better in the second half of the season. Yeah, he's been going off lately. So, did you get the stats yet?
No,
okay.
I don't know why.
Well, for the Packers, let's say this while you keep looking. Romeo Doubs led the team in receiving. I think the Packers have 4 number 2 receivers. This feels like they need a number 1. And apologies to Mr. Tim Watson. I don't think Christian Watson is the number 1 either. He's one of the number 2s. Of course, he missed this game. But I again, they could really use obviously they had Devontae Adams if they got him back or something. Just a real number 1 receiver to go along with all these weapons or these number 2 threats. I think that could really take the offense to another level. So did you get the Addison stats?
Yeah, I thought it's actually I thought his stats were better than this, but he's got 62 catches, 875 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's the 13th overall receiver in standard scoring leagues. I don't know what he is in PPR, but in PPR he'll be lower ranked because he's got so few catches compared to other guys. But he's got 9 touchdowns, right? So Malik Neighbors has over 100 catches, but only 6 touchdowns. So that's interesting. I wonder if he'll be a little bit depressed because of that. I wonder if people look at those numbers and underrate him.
I'm looking at his game log. Did you know that the first game this year that he's had more than 3 catches was November 3rd?
That's crazy.
Isn't it? Yeah. He's been, like I said, second half of the year. So his catch total, first half of the year, 3, 3, 3, 3. So very consistent, then 2, right? And then starting November 3rd, he's gone 5, 2, 3, 8, 4, 8, 7, 5, 6. So his production's basically doubled since the first half of the year, and he scored a lot of touchdowns to go along with it. So I mean, if you just look at the entire numbers, then they don't look good. But if you take the second half of the season and double it to get the whole thing, then it's going to look a lot better. So I wonder if people will note that, or maybe they'll just remember all the great games he's had in the second half of the year.
I also though think we made the list with talking about Tyreek Hill. There's a lot of those guys I would still take over Addison, and so I think Addison's going to end up. He's probably, my guesstimate is that he'll be drafted like 18th to 20th receiver off the board. Coming into this year, the 18th to 20th receiver off the board, the 20th receiver off the board coming into this year was DK Metcalf, being drafted 40th overall on average.
Okay,
so that's late third.
No, that's mid. That's early fourth.
Oh, it's early fourth. Sorry, yeah.
So I'm definitely posting Walt's Watson quote from just now and copying Kristen's father on it. Yeah, we could go for another Twitter war with Wajed, what's his name? Whatever his name is. Tazim Wajed. Yeah. So we could definitely go for another round. That'd be fun. Sue says some say probably Kenny included. That if Christian Watson would have played, the Packers would have beaten the Vikings. Certainly, he's worth 3 points to the Packers offense. Kenny.
No.
All right. Anything
unless
else?
Unless you get points for an abnormally sized hamstring.
Yeah. Right. I feel like nothing much else about this game. Naylor, I think you can ignore it. I feel like that's the fluke. All right. Redskins 30, Falcons 24. Jane Daniels was so great in this game. 127 rushing yards, 24, 36 passing, 227, 3-1. Olamide Zaccheaus is out of nowhere. He's another one of these cheap guys I was wondering about this week for DFS. I think he's 4,600. And like at first I was like, yeah, play him, right? But the Skins might bench their starters in the second half. So I worry about that. But no, he was. I mean, he past 2 games, he's had 24 plus DK points. So he's coming on. Maybe they found something. They need a number 2 receiver. Maybe they found one. I don't know. McLaurin only 1 catch for 5 yards. He had a tough time against AJ Terrell. But outside of that, the Redskins were great offensively. Defensively, they had issues against Penix late in the game. They couldn't stop Bijan Robinson. The run defense has been bad all year. Drake London had a good game. And Pitts had a rare good game too. And I kind of had a feeling. I played him in the showdown. I had a feeling that he would do well this week because he had a drop the prior week that turned into Penix's first interception of his career. So I thought this was like one of those embarrassing performances that he would bounce back from. And so, yeah, he did pretty well, 4 for 44 and a touchdown. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Jaden Daniels is awesome in this game. The idea that he's going to be in the NFC East for the next, 10, 15 years is a tad bit nauseating. He's really good. I also think the rest of this Redskins team, like the talent on this level of this team is good, not great. And so, coming into this year, like Brian Robinson, like he kind of has stalled over the last couple games. Like he was really good for a stretch and it's kind of been okay. And so I think his stats kind of show that, but I would imagine people are looking at him. And then the receiving core is like, blech, like, yeah, Zaccheaus, like no one's going to believe in that long term. So like, I don't know that they have a viable, like great, like why is Terry McLaurin not like, there are moments in this year where Terry McLaurin looked awesome. Then there are moments where he just like kind of goes away. So I think it's very odd. So yeah, for whatever reason, I think they need some legitimate like additions to this team. They need a legitimate passing option if they're going to take a next step. And I would imagine they're going to do whatever it takes to get that. Daniels, where does he go in fantasy drafts next year? Like, I would imagine he's going to be, right after Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen will be the first 2 guys off the board, I would imagine, right? And then Daniels probably right after those guys. Hurts in that mix.
When Daniels first started going off in that Monday night game against the Bengals, he was going as early as like 3rd, 4th round, which it was, again, I've told you that there's a lot of money to be made in best ball if you fade these overreactions. Like the best example was Isaiah Likely going 4th round after week 1. That was another overreaction where like it was obviously more warranted than likely, but still he was going way too early. I think he eventually settled in at like 6th or 7th round. So yeah, I think he goes now that he's going to be in his second year. If they give him another receiver, I think he probably goes like 4th or 5th round. If I were to guess. Yeah.
Because this year coming into the year, I mean, you had Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, but like Burrow was going in round 6.
Yeah.
And so Mahomes was going around that same time frame. Hurts was going before that. So all those quarterbacks were going around between round 3 and 6. You had 7 quarterbacks. Daniels will be right in that mix this year, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of hype with him for sure. And I agree with what you said about Robinson. We did so great with our player props this week. One of the ones that I was just dead wrong about was Brian Robinson over receiving yards. Because I thought with Eckler out, I thought he's going to catch more passes, but they threw to Chris Rodriguez instead. Like, I don't understand that at all. Like, Robinson is definitely more talented than Chris Rodriguez. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's time to look for a new running back or something, or at least someone to pair with Robinson. I know they still have Eckler, but that's it's obviously a short-term solution. So there are a lot of good running backs in this class. So I think they probably take one on like day 2 or something.
I would imagine Eckler's done. Like they can get out of the contract easily. I would imagine he didn't look like he had the same burst.
Yeah.
I would imagine if they're smart, they're going to pair Robinson with someone else.
Yeah. We talked about London already. Bijan Robinson. I think you would agree that Barkley is the number 1 pick.
Yeah.
Is Robinson number 2?
For me, he is. I would if I had the number 2 pick going in the next year, unless something crazy happens, Robinson's probably the number 2 guy.
Yeah, I think I agree with there. All right. Next game was the Monday night game. Lions 40, 49ers 34. I had the flu, so I missed like a chunk of this game. Actually, I just missed like most of the third quarter because like when I woke up, I eventually saw the score. I'm like, oh, that's not the same. That's not the score I remember. And then I was watching the highlights and I saw Purdy throw a first interception. I'm like, I don't remember that. And then like I saw St. Brown score. I'm like, oh, I didn't realize St. Brown scored a touchdown. So I was really dealing with this. Like I had 102 fever for like 3 days. And it finally broke last night. So thank goodness that's over. But anyway, the Lions went all out. People thought they're going to bench the starters, including maybe me. And I foolishly bet them first half. Of course, I lost. And then I bet them full game. They would have won. I would have won the bet. Of course. Jahmyr Gibbs, great game once again without Montgomery. He gets all the work and is fantastic, predictably. St. Brown, Laporta, Jameson Williams all score touchdowns. I think the biggest takeaway for the Niners is what Ricky Pearsall did. 8 for 141 in the touchdown. This was my number 1 sleeper in the summer until he got shot. So I feel like a little vindicated, and it's a little too late for that, but we see what he's capable of. And I think that like with him, with Pearsall emerging and Juwan Jennings having a great season, they can comfortably move on from Ayuk and Debo, and or at least Debo, and then just go into the next season with those 2 guys, and then Ayuk and then Kittle. I don't think they need Debo anymore. Debo has been a big disappointment ever since he had pneumonia. He had pneumonia. He actually had a decent start to the season, but like he had pneumonia and then he just was awful after that. Plus, like he only had 1 great season as well. So yeah, I think they'll definitely move on from Debo. So what are your thoughts on this game?
It was fun. It was a fun game to watch. I like Dan Campbell actually. He's like he's such a weird throwback character, but he's fun to watch. The Lions are fun to watch. I hope all their players get injured this coming week before the playoffs. But other than that, they're fun to watch. Jahmyr Gibbs is awesome. I think in standard scoring, typical ESPN scoring league, he's the 3rd running back off the board, or he's the 3rd best running back. So he's easily a first-round pick next year. I would imagine. I don't know where Dave Montgomery's going to go. I think if he comes back and plays in the playoffs at all and shows that he's healthy, I would imagine David Montgomery is also going to be drafted a 3rd or 4th round pick. If he doesn't show that he's healthy, maybe he drops a little, 5th or 6th, depending on if there's any question marks around his health. Receivers are great. I think Sam Laporta is good. Amon-Ra St. Brown is good. Jameson Williams, I would imagine. I can't imagine this guy is going to be drafted high. Like I think people are going to realize it's not real. I don't know. I totally agree with you on Pearsall. He looked great. I remember I had a lot of Pearsall Rainmaker cards.
No.
Anyway, Kittle looked great. The big question mark for the Niners, of course, is McCaffrey. If McCaffrey's healthy, then he makes everything go. And this offense looks great again. If McCaffrey's not healthy, then they got to figure out what they're going to do at running back and how that impacts the rest of the offense, which I think is pretty significant, as we've seen. So, I think those are the biggest question marks. Ricky Pearsall, though, I think he's a pretty significant wild card. Like, if they do move on from Debo, like they release him or trade him, where is Pearsall getting drafted?
I think he probably is. You would have to think that Ayuk and Jennings go before him. Obviously, Kittle too. So I think there might be some hype for him. It depends how much hype there is for this guy. If there's no hype for him, he probably goes like round 9 or something. But if there is hype for him, like he could go as high as like 6th round or 7th round.
If he's drafted as like a low end wide receiver 3, high end wide receiver 4, if that's how he's seen, or he's seen as like a viable flex candidate, then coming into this year, that would have been comparable to like the 78th pick off the board.
Yeah.
So what's that? That's round 8.
Yeah.
Right?
Around there. So, I think again, I think that's what I said applies. Like, it really depends on how much hype there is for him. Like it's funny how things have changed. Like back when we first played fantasy, like there was no hype for any players outside of like fantasy magazine stuff because there was no online, or like there was some online, but like there wasn't a large social media platform where everyone talked about it, everything, or there was no YouTube. But like now, if any big channel issues like, hey, this is my sleeper guy, like everyone's going to pick that up and like everyone's going to see it. And then other content creators are going to copy that person. And then they're going to like make that their sleeper. And so it's just so hard to find like these diamonds in the rough again. So like you don't really have that anymore. But I imagine that I feel like Pearsall could be like one of those guys who's like really hyped up by some channels, and like maybe he even goes like 5th round, where he just goes like way too early.
You're like, there's no value now at this point. Yeah.
Right. You're like, oh man, I wanted him, but he's going 4th, 5th round. I can't take him there,
Yeah. I would imagine like Juwan Jennings is like he's a nice player. He's had a good season, but like Ricky Pearsall is clearly more talented than Juwan Jennings. And so like if they do move on from Debo, like I don't see Pearsall as the 3rd receiver on that team. I see it as it's Pearsall and Ayuk, kind of 1-1A, with Jennings as the 3rd receiving option, but Kittle, in the mix as well. And so I could easily see Pearsall get hype because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about him for like 5 minutes now. Like he's already getting hyped. So
we're hyping him. That's it.
Yeah, right. It's over. It's over. Is I expected back to start next season? That's another question too. He may not be available. So if that's true, then Pearsall's definitely going to go way earlier than that.
I mean, Ayuk got injured early enough. You would expect him to be ready for the 2025 season, right? No.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, he towards ACL and MCL, so it's gonna be tough for him. I don't know. He might start on the PUP list. We'll see. But and plus you always want to avoid guys coming off, receivers and running backs coming off torn ACLs. So he's not someone I'd be interested in anyway. So no. I mean, maybe if he's expected to start on PUP, and you can't even trust the Niners anymore, like at all. Like with their injury updates, remember McCaffrey had a calf injury, and he was questionable heading to week 1, and then he didn't play until November. You can't trust them. So they're going to be like, oh, like Ayuk maybe questionable for week 1, and then we won't see him until November either. So, it's gonna be like that. So yeah, look, if there's pessimism with Ajax being available, yeah, no, I mean Pearsall could go 3rd, 4th round if he's like if he's projected to be the number 1 receiver on that team. So yeah, no, yeah, it's a good point, James. You mentioned Jameson Williams. He's like the perfect pick in best ball because like he's all or nothing. So he's like he's like the best 5th receiver to have on your team because like you want to have those studs, but like you want to have guys who can potentially eclipse those guys or do nothing. And so like yeah, sometimes he'll outscore your studs just because he goes nuclear. So I definitely picked him a lot in best ball, but in weekly regular fantasy, he's just kind of like maddening because you just never know what you're going to get from him.
How popular do you think best ball will get in the years to come? By the way, compared to like, I feel like it's getting so much more popular. Like, do you foresee that becoming a standard or maybe a more default option at some point?
I think so. I think it'll be more and more popular. I have to say that like this is my first year really playing best ball. I've tried it before, like not seriously. This is the first year I actually took it seriously. I enjoy this way more than regular fantasy. Like not even close. But then again, maybe it's like not fair for me to say that because I'm someone who never makes trades in fantasy. You know this very well. I think I made 1 fantasy trade in the past 10 years. Just because I never seek out any trades. I just don't have the time. But and then like I get offered a lot of trades. And like this trade sucks. Reject. I never counter offer. I should counter offer. I'm just like no. This is just way unrealistic. Reject. Like I just automatically reject. And I something I hate doing is like, and I'm sure like a lot of people hate this. I think the worst part about fantasy is deciding on your starting lineup each week. Like it's
it's the hardest.
It's the hardest thing. You always feel like you're making the wrong move. You're like, oh, if I don't start this guy, I feel like an idiot. And then every time you're like, I should have started him. I could have scored 15 more points if I started him. Like it's so rare that you always have the perfect lineup. Best ball, you don't have to worry about that. It just takes care of it for you. You just draft your team, and what is the best part of fantasy? Outside of trash talking, what's the best part of fantasy?
Drafting,
right? And that's all best ball is. You just draft, and then once you're done your draft, you do another one. You could do what you do them all night if you want, like I did. Like that. And by the way, drafting at night in best ball is the best thing because sometimes like it takes longer for draft rooms to fill on DraftKings, and sometimes like. It's not usually the case. Sometimes it might take like 2 hours for a room to fill. Like at night, like during the day, it'll take like 10 minutes. During the night, it might take like 2 hours. I feel like sometimes people fall asleep because like 2 or 3 people will go into auto draft, and then your team is just going to be so much better than a normal team would. Which like you'd be like, okay, they're all like all the teams in that league will be better, right? But once you graduate from that league, like if you win that pod, you go on to the playoffs, and then your team is just automatically going to be better than the other teams that you're playing against because you got better players because you had 3 people on auto draft. So I mean that's like my inside tidbit there. But no, I like drafting is so fun, and you get to do it all the time and just not do anything else. Like no waiver wire. You don't have to remember to claim. You never get to be like, I didn't get the guy I wanted, or like this idiot won't accept my trade. Or I don't know what to do with my line. Like you don't have to worry about that. You just draft, and like so addicting.
Drafting is the best. It's the best part.
Yeah, I know. Best ball sweat is awesome. Yeah, it's so fun. I definitely recommend that. We should do let's do a best ball playoff draft next week.
All right, I'm into it.
Okay, all right, sounds good. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Please like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. Thank you, especially to John Sanders for the 411.
You the man, John.
Thank you so much, John. Congratulations on winning your league, too. Kenny, you want to talk about thecapsfake.com?
Thecapsfake.com, brought to you by Peter Pan Peanut Butter. No, not really. Yeah, check it out. The Cap is Fake. If you're interested, I have started like 6 different articles that I've never published because I'm a slacker. But At some point in the offseason, I'll put once football season's over, I'll have a little bit more time on Sunday afternoons, so I'll pump out some content. Most of the content I've written has been in the offseason.
Nice. Yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah, I love the content there. So always looking to see new content on your site. By the way, when I was little, we had like knockoff Peter Pan. It was Peter Pen. So I don't, maybe that's why I don't like peanut butter. Anyway, all right, guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with Andy. I'm not sure if it's gonna be earlier than usual. Usually we start right after the Thursday night game, but there's no Thursday game. So I'll ask Andy when we can go live because he's West Coast time, so it may not make a difference to him. And I'll announce it when we go live. If we start later than we normally do on a normal day, I'll let you guys know. But all right, guys, enjoy the quarterfinal playoff game tomorrow. And then if I don't talk to you guys, good luck with your bets in Week 18. Kenny, always love doing this with you, and yeah, looking forward to next week. And thank you for the
Pardon me.
Pardon me. All right, bye, guys.
You know, man.